After a long time, the soul of the undead gradually dispersed. The sun returned, shining over the ocean. Things are finally over. Zeus looked at the coffin of souls that was shattered into ashes, and suddenly felt that there were extremely weak fluctuations of divine power in it. This is. Zeus pushed aside the powder in the coffin of souls, and found that there was a golden seed at the bottom of the coffin of souls. The seeds are only the size of a bean, emitting colorful lights, and a beautiful phantom of daffodils hangs over the seeds. This is. Golden daffodils. The most powerful god in this realm of gods is Chaos, the ancient god of chaos. He gave birth to 3 gods, namely, Destined Fate, the goddess of destiny, Ananke, the body of the abyss, Tartarus, and the mother of the earth, Gaia. When Chaos gave birth to the Earth Mother Gaia, countless chaotic breaths condensed into 7 seeds and scattered in the world. Zeus has already got the golden olive in it. This is another seed, the golden daffodil. A strong fragrance came out, and Zeus suddenly woke up. I see. It turned out that Scylla manipulated countless souls and gathered them in this coffin of dead souls. The main purpose was not to torture them, but to use their pain to form divine power gems. Instead, use the wailing of the soul and the spirit of the dead to cover up the rich aroma of the golden narcissus seeds. This is an incomparably precious original treasure of heaven and earth, and it is thousands of times more precious than the stone of divine power produced by Soul 987. If the news leaks out, I'm afraid that Scylla will be chased and killed by countless gods and monsters immediately, just for this golden narcissus flower that exudes a strong fragrance. Gold daffodils can be implanted into the source of divine power of the gods, so that the divine power, breath, consciousness, and power of the gods will be increased tenfold. Zeus was so jealous that he put the golden daffodil directly into the thundercloud. Thunderclouds quickly blotted out the rich scent of daffodils. Gold daffodils need to be slowly cultivated at the source of divine power, and finally take root and bloom in order to exert sufficient effectiveness. Zeus was going to go back and practice slowly. Dear God King, Zeus. At this moment, Chunju took Junju's hand and stepped into the temple. God King. Chunzu opened her beautiful eyes, her white fishtail swaying in the sea. Junju has something to tell you. She put her face against Junju's ear and whispered to her, be brave, child. Mermaids are a race that has the courage to pursue love. Remember, you would rather turn into foam in the sea than stand still. Pearl nodded. Chunju let go of Junju's hand, and looked at her lovingly as she walked forward. Zeus saw that the pearl had really grown up. She has black hair, her eyes are as bright as stars, and her dark red fishtail is crystal clear, like a perfect ruby. Before, she was just a baby mermaid in Chunju's arms, ignorant of the world. God King, Junju took a deep breath, straightened her chest, and looked directly at Zeus. Junju felt that she had never been so brave. She said every word. Great God King Zeus, I'm in love with you, I see. Zeus nodded. First Chunju, then her daughter. The mermaid race is so affectionate. Great King of gods, please forgive my treasonous words, because you are the main god I believe in. Apart from admiration and respect, I should have no other feelings for you. Second, I know what happened between your mother and you, and I shouldn't be involved in it. However, Junju took a deep breath, her eyes were bright, and she looked longingly at Zeus. I can't deceive myself. Zeus, the king of gods, you are the most beautiful boy in the world. The thunder power you control shakes my soul, and you're incomparable. Summer of the master of the world. Makes me intoxicated. 17. I just saw you release those poor souls. Countless souls broke through the ocean, and the ocean stirred up countless waves. They praised your name loudly, vying to fly to the sky. Middle. Above the sky, the soul covers the sky and the sun. They praised your mercy and sang your great achievements. Then, the sun rose and the sky cleared, and countless rainbows appeared above the ocean. God King, I cannot deceive myself. Junju moved forward step by step, and finally came to Zeus. She grabbed Zeus's hand tightly, her heart beating wildly. CFFA. God King, please listen to my heart. I love you. I love you not because of your respected status or powerful divine power. I love you all. Zeus, please listen to my heart. Even if you lose everything and have nothing, all your power and position are gone, and all believers betray you. I still love you because I love everything about you. Zeus, please listen to my heart. Everything I say is true, without any hypocrisy, in the name of God King. Junju's heart was beating wildly, and she looked at Zeus without fear with a resolute look on her face. But in the corner of his eyes, there were crystal tears falling down. Zeus saw the pearl's tears. Her perfect ruby-like tail began to dissipate little by little, turning into white foam. Junju's beautiful eyes stared at herself. The waves exploded around one by one, and Zeus felt Junju's strong heartbeat, one click, one click. Zeus felt Junju's fiery love and loyalty. Please share your love with me. Junju's eyes were full of longing, and her body trembled slightly. Because if the God King refuses, she will completely turn into a bubble, losing her mother, friends, memory, everything. Zeus nodded. Accepting pure pearls, and accepting real pearls, seems to be treasonous. However, human morality cannot be used to replace the creatures in this field. It was as if Zeus was destined to be the God King, which meant that he was destined to kill his father. There is no doubt that it violates human morality. In the future, Zeus will form a huge divine court to manage and rule everything in this divine domain. He needs a large number of gods, bestows them with divine power, and grants them priesthood. Zeus is the king of gods, and the king of gods needs a large number of gods who are loyal to themselves. The best way is of course to breed your own gods. Chunju's daughter, the mermaid princess Junju, you have won 1/10,000th of my love. Zeus looked at Junju solemnly. I swear in the name of God King. This 1/10,000th love will always belong to you. I will not betray my promise. I will always protect your dignity and safety, even when time collapses and the universe comes to an end. This is an oath between us. Junju was stunned for a moment, and then she cried. Her frothy fishtail quickly recovered, exuding a crystal red light. Thank you. God King. Thank you. Junju wept with joy. She covered her face with her hands, and the tears fell to the bottom of the sea one by one. Congratulations, kid. Chunju came over. She was smiling, but her eyes were red and she was also crying. So, 3 months later, Zeus woke up from his sleep, as if he had a black dream. Generally speaking, gods do not need sleep. Like Métis, she only needs to sleep once a year to the sound of birdsong. On the contrary, Euronome is an exception, especially likes to sleep. But Zeus was really exhausted. For 3 consecutive months, even a god king can't stand it. Zeus looked around. He was still in Skyla's emerald palace. On the emerald table next to him, there is a jug of fine wine, and a platter of fish, shrimp, crab, and mussel meat, decorated with starfish and coral, and the fat and tender meat is shiny and full of history. Next to the food and wine, there is a piece of white shell. Zeus casually took out a piece of meat and threw it into his mouth. The fresh and tender taste slid down his throat. As the upper god, Zeus does not need to eat at all and never feels hungry, but he also occasionally eats some mortal food. These foods are extremely delicious and full of divine power, obviously prepared by Chunju and Junju carefully for him. He took the white shell again, and there was a message left by the pure pearl on the shell. Great King of Gods, when we wake up, I see you are still sleeping. So, we have prepared food and wine for you. My daughter and I traveled 100,000 kilometers across this sea area and brought you the freshest fish, shrimps, crabs and mussels. Rinse with the clear spring in the deep sea, smoke with colorful seaweed, and season with white salt and pepper. And I made sashimi with a sharp knife. Wine is made from 70 kinds of fruit on the shore and 70 kinds of seaweed in the sea. Infuse them with divine power to keep them fresh and refreshing. We hope you enjoy it. We have placed the remaining treasures in the temple of Skyla into your thundercloud. At this point, we bid farewell to you, because the command of the God King still rings in our ears. Rule over all the mermaids in the world, and let them sing your praises loudly. We will fight bravely and pray fervently, under the protection of God King Zeus. One day we will proudly declare. With the help of the God King, we did it. We have lived up to the reputation of the God King. We will pray to you day and night, and may the King of Gods come to us again. Signature. Mermaid Queen, Pure Pearl, Mermaid Princess, Pearl. After reading the letter left by Chunju, Zeus tasted the divine wine in a pot. It has a strong fruit flavor, followed by the breath of the sea, full of divine power. Drip. Mission Zongcheng. You have been rewarded, Lake of Divine Power. In an instant, a blue lake appeared in front of Zeus. On the surface of the lake, divine power is transpiring, countless green grass and fairy flowers are blooming by the lake, and divine birds and beasts are running on the surface of the lake. This is the reward for choosing to defeat Skyla with the flesh before. Zeus used Chaos Divine Breath Mystery to practice divine power, which cost a lot. Using the source stone of divine power, I don't know how many long years it will take to cultivate. The secret realm, Crimson Sea, obtained before contains a wealth of divine power. The Lake of Divine Power, obtained this time, Zeus felt that its divine power was no less than that of the Crimson Sea. Zeus contacted Métis through the mind. Zeus saw that Métis was reading in her study room, and countless ancient scrolls were placed on the desk, some of which already possessed powerful divine power and wisdom, and were actually talking and debating with each other. The great king of gods, my husband. Métis' soft voice sounded like water, and she looked at Zeus with a smile. You have been away from Sea God Island for so long after listening to the call of believers. When will you come back? I miss you so much. I still have things to do. Métis, I have gained a lot from this trip, and you need to properly arrange these treasures. Shortly after, we will set off for Olympus. Before that, we must build Sea God Island into our permanent rear and base. The huge lake of divine power rose out of thin air, and accompanied by thunderclouds full of treasures, they flew towards Sea God Island. Métis didn't pay attention to those treasures, her eyes were as gentle as water, full of concern. God King, did you get so many treasures, Rigir? All the best. Please God King, take good care of your divine body. I am right here, listening to your call at any time. I know, Métis. As you wish, great God King, I will arrange these treasures. After talking for a while, Zeus cut off the spiritual communication with Métis, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Métis is still so gentle and beautiful. If Themis is as cold and sharp as snow and a knife, then Métis is like a gentle spring, which makes Zeus feel extremely relaxed. Euronome is like a fawn or a squirrel. In front of her, Zeus will let go of all burdens, and even have a little childlike innocence. The pure pearl and the real pearl are incomparably affectionate to Zeus, obedient to his words. After thinking about all this, Zeus condensed his divine power, and the infinite divine power condensed in his eyes. It's time to get down to business. A lone star in a pure white universe. A dim light spot appeared in front of Zeus. This is the reward that Zeus obtained through the mission before. Get 10,000 followers. The lone star in the pure white universe. Obtain 100,000 believers. The all-seeing eye, the key of life. Acquire millions of believers. Mirror, sword, apostle. Zeus ordered the mermaid army, believed in him, and got this reward. But at the time when the enemy was at hand, Zeus didn't check the reward carefully. I feel the power of the original treasures between heaven and earth. A charming voice sounded, and a goddess appeared in front of Zeus. Countless rose petals were produced out of thin air, and the strong fragrance enveloped the earth. Colorful phantom lights shone down from the sky, 100,000 rainbows appeared in front of Zeus, and above the rainbows, a goddess quietly appeared. Her beauty is indescribable, and her beauty is admirable. No one can question her beauty. Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love, appeared before Zeus. Aphrodite was conquered by Zeus and lived in the ring in Zeus's hand ever since. Before that, she had been sleeping deeply. God King, I feel the power of love. Aphrodite's voice turned into golden roses that fell from the sky one after another, and she landed in front of Zeus, her white skin glowing with dazzling light. The power of love. Yes. Aphrodite lifted Zeus' chin with her fingertips, and she grabbed Zeus's hand and pressed it on her lower abdomen. Such a majestic divine power. You gave birth to our child. Yes, for many years, I have been sleeping and conceiving our child, but today I was awakened by it. Aphrodite was very close to Zeus, her breath was filled with rose stamens and fresh grass roots. The taste is intoxicating. It's this little thing next to you. The lonely star in the pure white universe. A dim point of light, rotates and floats in the sky. It needs to wake up. How to awaken it? The power of love. Then we. No, Aphrodite blocked Zeus's mouth with her finger. We are not enough. And, do you know what it really does? Aphrodite pointed to the stars in the sky. Her fingers were white and slender, crystal clear, countless gemstones, phantoms of flowers, exuding the fragrance of honey, twirling around her fingers. It can bring the chaotic stars in the sky back to order. The stars in the sky? Zeus looked up, and above the starry sky, the stars were bright and beautiful, and there was nothing special about them. Don't you find confusing? Artemis' voice reminded Zeus of the morning dew and the evening breeze. I see. Zeus nodded. Countless stars shine above the sky, but there is no order. Leo, Aquarius, Aries, those 12 zodiac signs that affect people's destiny in later generations do not exist at this moment. Turn on this lone star, and you can extract the image of the living beings in the world and ascend to the starry sky. The stars will move at your will until they form constellations. Then how can we unlock the lone star in this pure white universe? Aphrodite laughed softly. Her laughter was like 1,000 larks singing together. It was the most beautiful song in the world. 727. Needs watering with love. I told you, we are not enough. However, Aphrodite raised her beautiful lips and looked carefully. Her red lips have 100,000 different reds, flowing in waves. I feel the love breath of the mermaid. There was a love here. Artemis held Zeus's hand. Her hand was extremely soft, scorching hot, and then became icy cold, and in an instant, countless wonderful touches erupted. Great God, you should know it. What is the first constellation you should create? Aphrodite mentions the departing merfolk. Pure pearl and real pearl, mermaid queen and mermaid princess. Pisces, Zeus replied. Yes, let's go after them. Aphrodite smiled, pointing to the sky. Countless deep red, dark blue, pitch black, and pure white roses fell from the sky, and the flowers fell like a rainstorm. The rich fragrance condensed into a solid body and rushed straight into the sky. Countless golden elves and nymphs appeared, flapping their golden wings and covering their eyes, praising Aphrodite's perfect face loudly. The roses fell to the ground and condensed into a beautiful rose float. The wheels are made of golden branches of roses, the wheels are white roses, and the body is red roses. The roof of the car is a huge shell composed of 100,000 roses of different colors, which represents Aphrodite formed from the foam in the sea, born on a pure white shell. Zeus stepped into the rose float. The interior of the float is extremely broad and expansive, and this is Aphrodite's rose garden. God King, let the fire of love ignite this night sky. Zeus turned into golden rain, falling gently in this rose garden. The wheels of the rose float move slowly. It rises without wind and flies into the sky. Countless roses, daffodils, olive flowers, and rose flowers appear out of thin air. They sway in the wind and gather to form a flower road. The floats drove on it and flew into the distance. The floats emit endless rays of light. Countless creatures looked at the float, and the power of love rose in their hearts. Pearls and pure pearls walk on the ocean. They are mermaids, walking on the ocean like walking on flat ground. An army of tens of thousands of fish is hidden under the surface of the sea. Chunju looked at her daughter. She looked into the distance, very silent. Since leaving Zeus, Junju has not spoken. Chunzu was a little worried about her daughter. What's the matter, child? Are you sad because you left Zeus? Junju nodded slightly. Son, don't do this. Zeus is the king of gods. We have already got 1/10,000th of his love, and we can't ask for more. What's more, we have the decree of the God King to unify all the mermaids in the world. As long as we fight bravely and pray sincerely, we will surely see Zeus again. After a long time, Junju spoke. Yes, mother, I'm a little sad. Junju looked calmly, looking into the distance, but now I seem to have not come out of those 3 months. The sun shines on her beautiful side face. It was as if my whole body was entwined by Zeus's thunder, and then I was crushed piece by piece, turned into powder, and drifted endlessly freely in the ocean. My soul seemed to fly to the farthest and most peaceful place. Then my soul suddenly recovered. I felt myself ascended to a very high sky, where the stars were but dim points of light, and then I descended to the earth, sank to the deepest part of the earth, like a grain of earth, a seed in a grain of earth. My soul was broken again, and then recovered. She turned her head, her eyes were like the clear springs in the sea. It lasted for 3 months, every minute, every second of those 3 months. After hearing this, Shunju froze for a moment, couldn't help but blushed and smiled. Stop talking. Of course I know, kid. Yes. Junju sat down a little tiredly, the waves hit her toes, I may never forget it. I don't know, when will I see the God King again? At this moment, a rosy glow illuminates the world. In the midst of the rays of the sun, a float of roses flew from the sky, exuding astonishing divine power. This kind of divine power. Shunju looked at the sky in surprise, and it was not inferior to Zeus's divine power. But it is not as violent as his divine power, full of the majesty of a god king. This divine power is gentle but unstoppable. Shunzu felt her heart beating wildly, and countless feelings burst out from her heart, as if she had returned to her young age, becoming that weak little mermaid in the bubble, looking up to the gods. The rose float car parked in the sky. A road of roses emerged in front of the car, falling from the sky, and landed in front of Shunju and Junju. The flower path exudes a heavenly fragrance, and the phantoms of countless rare and exotic animals walk on the flower path. Is this inviting us to go? Shunju's face was full of surprise. Aphrodite is the god of beauty and love, and she can make all the gods fall in love instantly. I felt a fire in my heart, as if I saw Zeus for the first time in 1.4. I wanted to tear myself apart and would rather die than love. What's wrong with me? Shunju gritted her teeth, she looked at the flower road tremblingly. I have a sacred contract with the God King. He will protect me forever, and I should always be loyal to him. No, I cannot climb this flower road. If I climb this flower road, I will be burned by the fire of love, completely burned. Let's go. Shunju gritted her teeth, she pulled Junju, and was about to turn into a fish and escape into the ocean. Beautiful mermaid, please stay. An extremely soft voice sounded from the sky, like honey-soaked berries bursting in the ear. Your God King is here. Aphrodite emerges from the float, her appearance is perfect. This. Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty. Aphrodite is a deity born when Cronus killed his father and seized the power of the gods. Her lineage is incomparably noble, and her beauty has been heard by the entire god realm. The moment Shunju saw Aphrodite, she felt as if she had been hit in the heart. She was instantly intoxicated by the beauty of Aphrodite, as if her soul had been pulled away. In the entire realm of the gods, the beauty of Aphrodite is sung, saying that her beauty can shame the flowers, and make the stars and the moon lose their luster. That can't describe 1/10,000th of the beauty of the goddess. Suddenly, hot tears rolled down from the corner of Shunju's eyes. Incomparable grief welled up from my heart. She lowered her head and saw her own reflection in the sea. White and almost transparent skin, extremely slender neck, golden hair, soft eyes and bridge of nose. A crown of beautiful coral and precious stones is worn on the head. I was originally considered to have the top appearance among mermaids, but after seeing Aphrodite, I instantly felt that my appearance was hideous and extremely ugly. I'm so ugly. In the past so long years, I have been satisfied with my beauty more than 25 times. What a crime I have committed. In front of such a beautiful goddess, how can I show my ugly face in front of the world? What right do I have to take another look at Aphrodite's perfect and infinite face? Endless misery emerged from her heart. Shunju burst into tears. She covered her face tightly with both hands, never wanting to be seen by others. She felt extremely ugly. All female creatures, when they see Aphrodite, will feel that their faces are ugly, so they will always cover their faces with their hands. Beautiful mermaids, are you inferior to your looks? Aphrodite looked at them with a smile. Don't worry. Come in. After it's over, I will give you beauty. I will give you the beauty that all living beings in the world respect. Among the floats, the roses in the rose garden were in full bloom, and suddenly, the flowers fell to the ground, and the dew appeared out of thin air, turning the place into a rose-colored ocean. A white merman and a red merman, the golden rain that Zeus turned into. Mermaids swim in the rose-colored ocean, and golden rose branches rise from the sea from time to time, blooming in the sky. The golden rain is sometimes fierce and sometimes gentle, sprinkled in this sea of roses. The power of love blooms here, and divine power slowly pours into that lone star, and its dim color begins to brighten. This went on for 9 months. One day, the lonely star in the pure white universe will be as bright as a star in the sky. It will be divided into 2 parts, and then divided into 4 parts, until it forms countless bright spots, which are neatly arranged in the sky. Zeus watched the change. The time has come. The stars in the sky are extremely bright, but there is no order. I, Zeus, the master of thunder, in the name of the future and eternal God King, command you, stars of heaven, with this lone star as your guide. I give you the image of this moment, form, constellation, shining in the sky, eternal. Show the way for all the confused creatures in this God's domain. Zeus mobilized divine power and injected it into the lone star. He watched the 2 mermen swimming in the rosy sea. The hands of the 2 mermaids are held together, and their beautiful tails stretch out in the ocean, forming a wonderful arc. The lone star is like a living spirit, and it understands Zeus' orders. Countless light spots began to change positions, depicting the image of Pisces. At the same time, the stars in the sky are also moving slowly. Among tens of thousands of stars, there are 90 brightest stars. They are connected back and forth, draw tracks in the starry sky, and connect with each other. Pisces is formed. It shines brightly above the starry sky. Drip. You completed one of the 12 zodiac signs, Pisces. The world is more complete because of your achievements. You get 1 million original power because of this. Above the stars, infinite divine power descended from the sky and poured into the divine body of Zeus. This is primordial power. Zeus once obtained the Chaos Box, which contained the power of chaos. The power of chaos has no form or body, can change into any form, and possesses all properties. The power of chaos can be used to promote the god position, increase the power of the gods, and increase the knowledge of the gods. It can temper weapons, cut off shackles, and break through limits. In short, the power of chaos is the omnipotent power of the second power god's domain. And the nature of the power of origin is exactly the same as the power of chaos. The only difference is, it's 10 times stronger. The power of origin is the power of chaos 10 times stronger. Confirming the power of the source, Zeus closed his eyes. He continued to transform into a golden drizzle and landed on this rose-colored sea. Thousands of miles away, it was late at night, but the sky was bright. 100,000 golden horns surged into the house in the sky. They made a majestic song of praise, praising the great achievements of the god King Cronus. We praise you, ruler of sky, earth, and sea, guardian of all living beings. The head of the 12 main gods, holding a sickle and burning with blue-black flames, Cronus. 100,000 golden horns continuously played hymns and symphonies, flying across the sea of the extreme west. Among the golden horns, a huge black dragon is flying in the air. On the black horns of the giant dragon stood a goddess with lazy and cold eyes. She has black hair and black clothes, and her wide robe flutters in the strong wind. One of the 12 main gods, 277, the wife of Iapetus, the pillar of the west, the mother of Prometheus, the goddess of prestige, Clymene. Suddenly, Cluhene's heart moved. She looked up at the stars. Her pupils suddenly widened, and her face revealed a look of incomparable shock. Clymene suddenly discovered that the stars in the sky were actually moving. In the brilliant starry sky, thousands of stars are shining. And there are tens of thousands of stars, contrary to the will of the god King. They traverse the sky. And among them, the brightest 90 stars are connected from end to end, forming a unique star. It's a constellation. A constellation is born. Clymene looked at the sky in shock. How terrifying! What terrifying divine power is needed to move tens of thousands of stars? No, that's not the scariest thing yet. This should be the achievement of the god King. But my great god King Cronus, he is becoming more and more crazy. He will not mobilize the stars at all, arrange them in the sky, and form constellations. Who did this? This is stealing the authority of the god King. Except for the King of Gods, no creature is qualified to move them. This is challenging the authority of god King Cronus. The stars in the sky did not move with the will of the god King. Clymene's mind went blank. A million miles away, in the temple of Olympus. The stars in the sky defy the will of the god king. A deity gazes at the sky. He was dressed in a long robe, burning red flames all over his body. He has no mouth or nose, his head is like a pitch-black planet, and rose-colored flames surround his head, circulating non-stop. This is one of the 12 titans, the first sun god, near Peri. The huge, eternally burning temple with blue-black flames was empty. Cronus, the god king, was sleeping on his throne. Among the 12 main gods, the ocean god Oceanus has been killed by the king of gods. The ocean goddess Thesis was imprisoned by the god king into the abyss. Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory, is busy recording what happened in this god's domain, and never participates in exaggeration. The pillar of the west, Iapetus, was the pillar of the sky, so he was unable to attend the meeting. Themis stabbed her own eyes and betrayed the gods. Clymene received the order of the god king and went to the far west to destroy the new god. Even Prometheus did not attend the meeting, and he followed his mother to the far west. Usually there are only a few gods. As for the divine king, he is now sleeping most of the time. Hyperion looked at the sleeping god king in fear. The god king's temper became more and more moody and crazy, and he was rarely sober. Mount Olympus trembled. Here we come. Hyperion looked out of the temple in fear. All of a sudden, countless black lines merged into the outside of the main hall, carrying violent divine power. They crazily merged into Cronus' divine body. When the god king is sleeping, there are always creatures in the Olympus god realm who start to burn inexplicably. They screamed, and their bodies were covered with blue-black flames, burning to ashes in an instant. Then, a blue-black thin line was born from the remains, flying towards Olympus. Countless black lines gathered on the dome of Mount Olympus and merged into Cronus' body. The 12 Lord gods of Olympus are the most powerful gods in this god's domain. Hyperion is the 7th level of the main god, and he has stayed at this level for millions of years. Cronus's divine power far surpasses the 12 main gods. With his phantom, he can kill Oceanus, one of the 12 main gods, with a single spear from 1,000,000 kilometers away. And his divine power is still growing. Hyperion quietly exited the temple. The stars in the sky violated the will of the god king and formed a new constellation. As the first-generation sun god, he knows better than anyone else. This is undoubtedly provoking the authority of god king Cronus. But he was unwilling to wake up the god king with this bad news. He didn't want to be a victim of Cronus' wrath. Hyperion has a very bad intuition. He feels that in the near future, Olympus will usher in an earth-shattering catastrophe. His wife, Phoebe, the goddess of light, has been conceived for a long time. The divine son of Hyperion will be born soon. Can my son of God take over my priesthood and become the 2nd-generation sun god? Hyperion was preoccupied. The sea of the extreme west is above the cause. Zeus rode in the thundercloud and returned to Poseidon Island. This trip has been fruitful. Treasures and narcissus seeds from Skyla's temple. The lake of power obtained from the quest, and the 1,000,000 original power obtained by creating constellations. After everything was over, Aphrodite returned to his ring and fell into a deep sleep, and Shunju and Junju continued to perform their missions. Before leaving, Aphrodite bestowed pure pearls and real pearls, worth the beauty of 100,000 flowers in full bloom. They finally didn't have to cover their faces in front of Aphrodite. However, Zeus' complexion was not very good looking. First, the 3 months spent with the mermaid, and then the 9 months spent with Aphrodite. For a whole year, even if Zeus had infinite power and a strong body, he couldn't stand it anymore. The sea god island was right in front of him. Zeus saw a girl in red waiting for him on the beach. It's Métis. Métis' red dress fluttered in the strong wind, her head was full of black hair, and her eyes were full of tenderness. Zeus landed beside her. Zeus, you are back. Métis' voice was as gentle as water. This journey, you have been away for so long. I miss you so much, Métis said softly, and she grabbed Zeus's hand. You must be very tired. Tonight, I will turn into a hot spring for you. How about getting rid of fatigue? Métis' eyes were shining, and her hands were extremely warm. Zeus was greatly embarrassed, and of course he missed Métis very much. But he is really tired. Métis, I will be with you forever. There is no rush for this moment. All right. You have a good rest, my god king, Métis replied gently. I obeyed your order and properly placed those treasures. Now Sea God Island has a completely new look. I will take you to have a look. A clear spring emerged out of thin air, and Métis and Zeus stepped on it and flew into the air. Zeus saw that the lake of divine power he got was placed in the north of the island by Tiz. The water of the lake is crystal clear, the lush vegetation covers the shores of the lake, and countless beautiful birds fly above the lake. The bottom of the lake is shimmering and covered with emeralds. The emeralds are arranged in a special pattern, forming a magic circle. In the four directions of southeast, north and south, each has a small formation, and the four small formations are horns of each other, guarding the big magic formation in the center. Green light flows around the magic circle all the time, as if there is life. The majestic divine power rushed to his face. This is the magic circle of the big four elements. I learned this magic circle from an ancient book. Métis pointed to the northernmost small formation. Great king of gods, of course you know that the world is filled with four basic elements: earth, air, water, and fire. The small formation in the north can mobilize the power of earth, the power of water in the south, the power of fire in the west, and the power of air in the east. Let this lake of divine power burst out with the power of elements. Of course, that magic circle is still not perfect. Métis stared at the magic circle. The small square array gathers divine power, condenses elemental power, and gathers in the central magic array to form fire in water, earth in fire, air in earth, and water in air. The divine power produced in this way is the purest. Métis said softly, God King, you absorbed only 30% of the divine power from the divine power stone before, and the rest was dissipated. Dropped. Now, it absorbs 90%. Thank you, Métis, Zeus replied. However, the most dazzling thing here is not the magic circle, but a majestic statue of Zeus. The moneyed statue is 1,000 meters high, and the whole body is made of gold and green gold. He sits on the throne and looks into the distance. There seem to be countless beams of light in his eyes, looking at everything. The statue wears a golden crown symbolizing the king, holds a thunderbolt in its left hand and a scepter in its right hand. Above the scepter is a huge amethyst, and the mysterious purple shines by the lake. Purple is the color of kings. The divine power fluctuated around the statue, forming a faint electric current, spinning around. In the distance, divine power transformed into mountains and rivers, the earth and the sea, and the stars in the sky flowed with the sun and the moon, as if foreshadowing everything under the jurisdiction of the god King Zeus. Majestic and surging, infinite momentum rolls out from the statue. Great God King, your followers are increasing day by day, and they need a statue to worship. I have tried my best to create this statue for you. If this statue can show a 10,000th of your divine power, then I will be satisfied. This statue can increase the power of your followers, giving you a larger power zone. Cough cough. Speaking of this, Métis suddenly covered her mouth and nose, her messy hair covered her face. Métis, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Métis covered his mouth and nose, and turned his head to one side. You are injured. It seems that refining the venom stone still hurt your source of divine power. Zeus held Métis' shoulders, and saw her somewhat thin body, and the divine power flowed in her body, rising and falling like a sea tide. Take your hand. No, bring here. No, thunder suddenly appeared in Zeus's hand, and surging power surged out. He grabbed Métis' hand and broke her clenched palm. Sure enough, the palms of his hands were filled with jet-black divine blood. Her messy hair covered her eyes, and her mouth and nose were filled with black blood. Zeus, you hurt me. Zeus withdrew his hand and wiped the blood from her mouth. Here. This is the best. A golden olive appeared in the hands of Zeus, and the divine power surged and burst out. Crack, click. The surrounding space was unexpectedly shattered by the divine power in the golden olive. The power of chaos gushed out from countless black gaps, and a terrifying storm of divine power centered on Zeus roared out to the surroundings. Zeus, this is the original treasure between heaven and earth, one of the golden seeds that fell from the sky, the golden olive? In the gust of wind, Métis' black hair fluttered with the wind, her pupils slightly opened, and she looked at the golden olive in Zeus's hand in surprise. Yes. This is the most precious 077 healing treasure in the world. Only this one is enough to revive a fallen god. It will definitely make up for your lack and heal the damage caused by the Venom God's stone. No, Zeus. You implant it into your source of divine power. In this way, in battle, as long as you do not die completely, you can be resurrected from this golden olive. I don't want it, it is very precious to you. I still have. I can't accept it. Métis' eyes were firm. Métis. Zeus sighed, don't you understand my heart? After I seize the throne of God King, I will hold the grandest wedding in the world for you. You are my wife, the creature I love the most. I can't lose you. I can't lose you. Accept this golden olive. If you are unwilling to follow your husband's advice, then, in the name of the King of Gods, I command you. Zeus' tone suddenly became serious. The incomparably terrifying and awe-inspiring aura of a god king, CFFE, billowed from his body. Yes. Métis was taken aback for a moment, then accepted the golden olive and put it in his mouth. Zeus smiled. Then, Métis, let me ask you, did you accept it because of the god king's order, or because of your husband's suggestion? You guess. Métis suddenly smiled, and she leaned forward. Sea God Island, on the lake of divine power. The blue waves of the lake are rippling, and the divine power is transpiring, transforming into countless phantoms of lions, swans, and birds, wandering above the void. Even more powerful, the turbulence condenses into substance, forming sharp swords. The sword pierced the sky, breaking through the space, and the terrifying chaotic air evaporated from the space fragments, and countless black air interweaved on the surface of the lake. Zeus sat upright on the surface of the lake, surrounded by golden light shining, divine power billowing, trembling continuously. All the chaotic air touched him, and immediately disappeared. Phantoms of thunder, crown, scepter, sword and shield appeared behind him, and countless brilliance flowed in his eyes. The day to go to Mount Olympus and compete with the God King for power in the world, Titan War, is getting closer. Zeus's eyes flashed brightly, he must continue to improve his strength. Zeus's body was shining with thunder, and the source of his divine power appeared. A square of thunder floated on the deep Red Sea. On the surface of the sea, there is still a golden olive tree. The crown is like a tourmaline, and the stem is like a scepter of royal power. It bears 8 golden olives, shining brightly and exuding a majestic power of life. The sacred tree stood upright on the Red Sea, like a fortress in a storm, unmoved. Zeus invoked the mysteries of the divine breath of chaos, and in an instant, strange things happened. The water droplets in the lake of divine power rise up, and each drop of lake water shines with surging elemental power. The northern magic circle mobilized the power of the earth, and phantoms of 100,000 giant mountains rose from the ground. The southern magic circle mobilized the power of water, and hundreds of thousands of waterfalls appeared, and the sound of water flowed through the heaven and earth. The western magic circle mobilized the power of fire, and countless monsters made of flames emerged out of thin air, and they began to bite each other crazily. The eastern magic circle mobilized the power of chi, and thick white mist rose up, covering the sky and the sun. The magic circle was running crazily, and the wave light was flowing faster and faster, emitting roars like 100,000 monsters from hell. The exploding elemental energy condenses with the divine power in the lake of divine power, forming crystals of brilliance, exuding infinite starlight and rose-colored, purple particles, transpiring upwards, like a rainstorm that reverses the world. These light-emitting particles frantically poured into the source of Zeus's divine power and sank into his crimson sea. There are ups and downs in the Red Sea, and no language can describe its beauty. 10%. Breakthrough, 20%, breakthrough, 30%, breakthrough. 90%. Boom. Zeus instantly broke through the 5th rank of the upper god and stepped into the 6th rank. Moreover, after the breakthrough, the divine power is still increasing crazily, without stopping. BT. Made. 30%, 90%. Zeus crossed 2 steps in a row, stepping into the 7th step of the upper god. After a long time, Zeus suddenly opened his eyes. Before, every time Zeus mobilized his divine power, his eyes would shine with thunder and brilliance flow. But now, in the eyes of Zeus, the stars are ups and downs, the sun and the moon are turning, the huge waves are crashing on the mountains, The mountains are collapsing between the earth. The sky is full of dark clouds, and the golden thunder is shining violently. A realm of gods has begun to evolve in his eyes. Mortis sat quietly by the side, her long red robe fluttered in the gust of wind, her messy hair fluttered, but she was still watching Zeus quietly. She is guarding Zeus. In my eyes, the evolution of a realm of the gods. This is a miracle that only the god king Cronus possesses. Olympus' 12 main gods, except for Cronus, 6 are 4th level main gods, 4 are 5th level main gods, and 1 is 6th level main gods, but none of them can evolve the world in the binocular. And Zeus can do it with only the 7th level of the upper god. The divine power was still growing violently in Zeus' body. After a long time, it slowly stopped. The realm stays at the peak of the 7th level of the upper god, and will soon break through the 8th level. However, it's not over yet. A golden seed floated in front of Zeus. The seed shone in 99 colors, presenting a beautiful phantom of daffodils. A perfect golden narcissus flower can increase the divine power, consciousness, and might of a god tenfold. Zeus planted the golden daffodil seeds into his source of divine power. The seeds sank into the deep red seabed, and in an instant, a green sprout burst out of the ground. It emitted crystal green light, and countless divine power particles around it were attracted by it, surrounding it. Suddenly, thunderous applause broke out, and cheers burst out. Zeus's eyes showed a bright light. This, just a sprout from a seed, has increased my divine power, consciousness, and divine power by as much as half. Zeus looked at the sprout in the source of divine power in surprise. Mature golden daffodils can increase the strength of gods by 10 times, which is indeed true. Waiting for it to grow slowly is obviously too slow. With a thought in Zeus's mind, the infinite black thick fog burst out with an earth-shattering roar, and suddenly appeared. 1 million original power. Zeus directly grabbed 200,000 original power and injected it into the buds of the golden narcissus flower. Boom! The tender bud absorbed the power of the source, and suddenly, it swelled directly, and its low-hanging branches suddenly stretched out, and a beautiful petal quietly bloomed. The fragrance soaring into the sky came rushing to the nostrils. Zeus exuded a strange fragrance all over his body, and the beasts and creatures within 10,000 miles suddenly turned their heads in the direction of Sea God Island. Their eyes showed great yearning. All the flowers within 100,000 miles hung down their branches, showed their stamens, and bowed their heads in the direction of Sea God Island. Immediately afterwards, there were 8 green shoots surrounding the central flower, rising from the ground. Boom! -5. 20% strength increased by 30%, not enough. Zeus simply grabbed another 300,000 original power, and continued to inject Jinn Narcissus cow. Boom! The 8 green shoots burst into amazing flashes at the same time, and a petal bloomed together. Immediately, Zeus felt infinite divine power pouring into his body. Infinite consciousness poured into his mind. 100,000 different golds and 100,000 different purples complement each other, and 100,000 sounds sounded in his ears. The roar of hungry beasts, the sound of flowers breaking through the soil, the sound of falling snow, the sound of water plants swaying, thousands of creatures, whispering, erupted in Zeus's ear at the same time. Infinite flavors emerged from the mouth of Zeus, the sweetest honey, the bitterest poisonous wine, the most sour jealousy, and the bitterest tears burst out in his mouth at the same time. 100,000 smells, the smell of the earth in the morning, the smell of blood on the battlefield, the smell of rancid corpses, and the fragrance of blooming flowers are intertwined and fused, rushing into the nose crazily. This is divine consciousness. The gods not only need divine power, but also divine consciousness. Consciousness is the ability to appreciate everything in the world. Zeus' understanding and familiarity with everything in the world is also increasing crazily. Zeus was intoxicated, sometimes crazy, sometimes crying, sometimes thinking hard, sometimes suddenly enlightened. His soul was in the void, singing and dancing wildly. Sigh, sorrow, joy, anger, all emotions merged into one, shaking his soul. The kingly aura exuding from him is even stronger. If it is said that before Zeus exuded majestic power of the king, people could feel the anger of the king, just like a great god, holding a weapon, roaring at the end of the universe. Now, the king sits high on the throne, thousands of gods bow their heads for him, The stars, sun and moon move according to his will. The mountains and oceans rise and fall at his command, and all creatures rise up to praise his glory. Zeus is still the peak of the seventh-order high god, but his divine power, consciousness, and might have doubled. Infinite power is within the divine body. The eyes of Zeus are shining. He no longer pays attention to the 12 main gods of God King Cronus. Even Cronus himself confided, "Not enough, not enough." Zeus looked at the original power bursting out with astonishing power. That being the case, simply use them together to maximize your strength. My divine power and consciousness have just been greatly improved, and now I need to consolidate and cannot practice anymore. Then, upgrade your weapon. Zeus currently has 2 weapons. One is the thunder that he was born with to control. One is the spear of freedom obtained from missions, which can change attributes and forms at will. A thunderbolt in the shape of a perfect cube appeared in front of Zeus. It was only 100,000 thunderbolts at first, and it was constantly cultivated and strengthened by Zeus, and finally condensed into the current appearance. And a spear. It crazily changes its shape. It is instantly huge like a pillar supporting the sky, and then collapses into tiny, barely visible particles in an instant, and the crazy divine power is rolling and fluctuating. The Spear of Liberty can freely change its form at any time according to the form of the battle, and incarnate into the most suitable appearance. The power of origin, like the power of chaos, has all forms, all attributes, and all uses. Naturally, it also has the ability of extraction and fusion. Zeus is ready to extract the essence of the Spear of Liberty, and integrate its infinite changing ability into his own thunder. After all, thunder is the most suitable weapon for him. There are still 500,000 original power left. Zeus directly grabbed 200,000 and poured it into the Spear of Freedom. In an instant, Zeus's soul seemed to be withdrawn, and it seemed to have entered another space. In front of it stood a high white wall, directly to the sky. The high wall is composed of countless spears. In an instant, the high wall collapsed, and the tips of countless spears turned around and pointed at themselves. This is the weapon spirit of the Spear of Liberty, and all powerful weapons have a weapon spirit. Extracting the essence of weapons and fusing them into other weapons is equivalent to killing the original weapons. Naturally, they will not give in easily. Billions of pure white spears turned into white glare and attacked Zeus together. Thunder flashed all over Zeus, and he aroused the power to shake the heavens and the earth. Suddenly, Zeus became extremely tall, billions of arms appeared, and in the palm of his hand, dark clouds were densely covered, and thousands of golden thunders roared together. Boom! Zeus holds all billions of spears in his hands. The spears trembled violently in Zeus's hands, trying to break free. Their figures were changing wildly. Suddenly, all the spears transformed into a manticore with the head of a lion, the body of an eagle, and the tail of a manticore. Billions of monsters opened their mouths together and bit Zeus' hand. "Surrender to me, spirit of weapons. You will not disappear, but will be united with my thunder. With me, you will witness countless great battles, defeat countless terrifying enemies, and you will become a part of my supreme glory. Submit to me." Zeus roared. The sky and the earth trembled together, the dark clouds rolled and flowed, and separated instantly. Countless rainbow lights illuminated the earth, and Zeus's billions of hands burst out amazing divine power together, pinching the manticore in his hands fiercely. 1 billion manticores spewed blood from their mouths, and a bloody rainstorm poured down. "Submit to me." The voice of Zeus resounded between the heaven and the earth, and the color of despair emerged on the faces of the manticores. Their eyes showed deep hatred, and they began to howl together. "Surrender to me." Zeus burst out with 10 times the divine power. Boom! 1 billion manticores were crushed and exploded by Zeus. But this time, no flesh and blood exploded, they turned into endless white powder, floating in the air. The powder condensed together, and finally turned into a white spear, which fell gently on the ground. The tip of the spear was lowered towards Zeus. Spear of Liberty, the spirit of the weapon, finally succumbed to force. After 100 days, a square of golden thunder stopped in the hands of Zeus. Quiet, restrained, like a perfect gem. With the thought of Zeus, in an instant, the thunder turned into a golden dragon. The dragon spread its wings and flew into the sky, covering the sky and blocking out the sun. Roar! The giant dragon let out a deafening roar, and the surrounding ocean rose with turbulent tides. The giant dragon flew downward, and suddenly, it turned into a sword and fell into the hands of Zeus. The sword is divided into 2 parts, and the 2 parts are divided into 4 parts. In a moment, 100,000 swords are lined up in the air, like a majestic army. Immediately, thunderbolts, spears, daggers, short swords, shields, machetes, and countless weapons changed in the air, making people dazzled. They burst into countless colors: rose color, star color, deep red, blue. Countless beams of light soared directly into the sky. In the end, all the weapons were unified and turned into a 713 thunderstorm, which fell into the center of Zeus' eyebrows. Spear of Liberty and Thunderbolt completely merged successfully. Before that, Zeus concentrated his divine power and blasted Scylla to pieces with 3 punches. Now, Zeus is confident, as long as he has a thought, the thunder can instantly kill Scylla. Like a raging fire devouring withered grass, like a sword cutting through a veil. Zeus collected the thunder into the thundercloud and continued to consolidate his divine power. "Hello, Zeus." After an unknown amount of time, a crisp voice rang out from beside my ears. Zeus woke up from his practice. His divine power is extremely solid, like the cornerstone of a pillar supporting the sky. Zeus walked out of the sky. A girl in red was holding a petite girl in green in her arms. The girl in green had a bright face and kept waving to Zeus. It was Métis and Eurynome. Zeus fell from the thundercloud to the ground. "This child," Modus said with a smile on his face, "as gentle as a spring. We feel that your divine power has been consolidated." She insisted on me holding her to see you, and said she didn't want to walk. She put down Eurynome as she spoke. "It's too tiring to walk." A huge sunflower broke out of the ground, and Eurynome stepped on it. "It has been a long time since I saw her, but her godhead has become more distinct, and her appearance has also changed a little. Transparent wings grew out of her back, and they flapped gently. The skirt was made of flowers and beautiful grass, exuding a fresh fragrance. Pink hair cascading down. A small tree with an onion growing on top of it." Eurynome stood on tiptoe and stepped on the sunflower, surrounded by countless squirrels, white rabbits, birds and butterflies. "Brother Zeus, hello. Let's go play." Ourino's black eyes were as innocent as a deer. Every time he saw Eurynome's innocent eyes, Zeus couldn't help but sigh in his heart. She still doesn't know about her parents' death. Except for the big snake's marriage, which she cannot avoid, she will not know about almost all the unpleasant things. Her godhead is like holding up an umbrella in the heavy rain, preventing her from knowing unhappy things and staying happy forever. Because her godhead is joy and carefree, Zeus has grand goals and heavy responsibilities, but sometimes he envies Eurynome for his carelessness. "I want to play just now. How is your divine power?" "This. Huh." Eurynome pursed her lips, and the sunflower suddenly grew bigger, wrapping up Eurynome. From the blossom burst the clear voice of Eurynome. "I hate Zeus. Asking this kind of question just after I got back. I hate it. I don't want to see you." "Still a middle god? After so many years, no progress at all?" Zeus looked at Mortis, and Mortis nodded with a wry smile. Zeus couldn't laugh or cry. "The source of my divine power has made great progress." The sunflower blossoms unfolded, and the head of Ourinos emerged from it. She pointed to the top of her head. Look, it was just a sapling, but now it's a small tree." The source of divine power of Eurynome is a pasture with abundant water and grass. In the pasture, there is a happy tree in full bloom. With the awakening of the source of divine power, a small tree grew on top of her head. That tree of joy bears wombat fruit, giving living things what they most desire. Zeus nodded. "It has indeed grown up a bit." "Grown up a lot. Okay, the source of Eurynome's divine power has evolved very fiercely. The strange thing is that her divine position and divine power have not changed at all." Modus walked over, and she said softly, her eyes full of tears. "Love, perhaps when the happy tree grows up and the worry-free fruit matures, her divine power will increase suddenly. That makes people forget all troubles and sorrows, be happy forever, and get the worry-free fruit of happiness." This made Zeus look forward to it. "Let's go to the beach. It's been a long time. Métis proposed. Okay. Orino Molang said bluntly. Zeus. Métis turned his head, his eyes were as gentle as water. I brought fine wine brewed with divine power, cooked a few dishes, and honey bread. Let's go to the beach, then go to the bottom of the sea, and then take flying fish, fly facing the ocean, watch the sunset, okay? Mortis is also a master at making food and wine. Although Zeus does not need to eat mortal food, he also likes to taste the handicraft of Mortis. Mortis said softly. God King, your divine power is solidified, and you can't improve it for the time being. I feel that the road of destiny is approaching you. Soon, you will step on the road to Olympus and compete for the most powerful person in the world. The noble authority, become the God King who rules the sky, sea and earth. Maybe at that time, we will never have the opportunity to travel together again. Let's cherish this moment. Just what I want, Zeus nodded. The three walked on the beach and climbed the highest mountain nearby. They rode flying fish, roamed the ocean, and watched the sunrise. They dive into the bottom of the sea to watch the fish and shells in the sea. They saw countless beautiful mermaid nymphs and elves. Zeus still played chess with Eurynome from time to time. Of course, she still didn't win once, and when she lost, she ran into Métis' arms and cried bitterly, which made Métis glared at Zeus non-stop. I don't know how long this time lasted. Finally, that day has come. 2.2 As the sun sets, the three of them sit on the beach and watch the sunrise. The sound of the sea tide rang softly in my ears. Zeus took a sip of the divine wine, and the taste of 100,000 kinds of fruits exploded in his mouth. Drop. The prompt sounded in the ear. One of the 12 main gods, Clymene, will approach Sea God Island within a day. She will crush you with all her might. Option 1. Take Mortis, and Eurynome flees. Reward. A piece of white gauze. Option 2. Face Clymene and completely defeat her. Reward. 5 million original power. Reminder. After defeating Clymene, the Titan Wars mission will start. The Titan War is the war in which Zeus challenged the god king Cronus to gain power. The third great war in the history of Olympus. Zeus made a choice calmly. I choose option 2. Not far from Sea God Island. 100,000 golden horns are arranged neatly, flying over the ocean. They play majestic symphonies and hymns, praising the prestige of god king Cronus. The horn guards a huge black pterosaur with 4 wings and 7 horns. The huge dragon wings cover the sky and the sun. There seems to be a world in each dragon scale, and dark planets circulate in it. On the black dragon horn, there is a white throne. The goddess sat on it, looking into the distance with cold and lazy eyes. Clymene looked at the sea god island in the distance, with an imperceptible scornful smile on the corner of his mouth. Strong divine power, heavily guarded. There seems to be a magical barrier, covering the truth. It's nothing. This magic barrier comes from the ancient scriptures. The layout is more than exquisite, but the divine power is not enough. Clymene looked down at the ocean, her beautiful hair cascading down. But the creatures near the island have all betrayed the gods. Under the influence of Zeus, the creatures around Sea God Island betrayed their belief in Cronus and converted to Zeus. In an instant, her eyes became extremely terrifying. Clymene leaned on the 25th throne. Her eyes were cold and terrifying. She held her chin in one hand, and pointed her slender fingers into the sea. Boom! A mermaid living in the deep sea, as if caught by an invisible giant hand, flew straight from the sea to the sky, and came to Clymene. The mermaid was terrified. When she saw Clymene, her pupils opened suddenly, showing surprise. The 12 gods of Olympus. The 12 Lord gods of Olympus are the supreme authority in this god's domain, and the king of the 12 Lord gods is God King Cronus. Almost all creatures in the world are aware of their power and submit to their authority. Suddenly, the mermaid realizes her end is near. Because the God King is narrow-minded, he will severely punish the creatures who betray the belief of the God King. Olympus, great 12 gods, goddess of prestige, Lord Clymene, I heard your call. What can I do for you? The mermaid's voice trembled, and tears welled up from the corners of her eyes. Clymene glanced at the mermaid, and she asked softly, who do you believe in? Zeus. It really is him. A killing intent flashed in Clymene's eyes. She remained calm, still lazily leaning on the throne. The power of the throne circulated, and black and golden beams of light emerged, flying into the ocean. You love your daughter very much, don't you? Yes. Yes, she is lovely, a great god. Boom. Above the ocean, the waves exploded, and a cute mermaid baby flew up from the sea and landed in front of the mermaid. She closed her eyes and was still asleep. When the world was separated, the mermaid signed a contract with the god king Cronus. Clymene gritted her teeth and said word by word. The mermaid must always believe in the god king Cronus. And you betrayed the god king, are you guilty? Clymene asked coldly. Staring at Clymene with a cold expression, endless terror surged in the mermaid's heart. She summoned up her courage and was about to speak. I don't need your stupid explanations and despicable excuses. Before the mermaid could answer, Clymene burst out with terrifying divine power. Boom! The baby mermaid exploded immediately, flesh and blood flew everywhere, and the bones of the corpse were broken and turned into powder. No, no, no. The mermaid was stunned for a moment, and the corners of her eyes turned red immediately, tears gushed out, and endless grief rang out like thunder in her heart. That's my child, I conceived her alone, she has been with me all the time, and I still want to watch her grow up and find her lover, you. The mermaid's entire body was trembling, her breathing was extremely rapid, and all kinds of emotions exploded in her heart, and her divine power suddenly increased by 30%. Is this the god of Olympus? We believe in Cronus, the king of gods. For tens of millions of years, we mermaids have been slaughtered and tortured by countless ferocious beasts, and we have been reduced to slaves. We pray to Cronus day and night, but never I don't see him show a little bit of kindness, a little bit of justice. The mermaid pointed to the sky. Is there a sliver of justice in this divine realm? Is there a sliver of law? When I encountered injustice, I never heard it. God King's words, and I no longer believe in you, you are so vicious. No mother can bear to have her child killed before her eyes. I'm fighting with you. What Olympus, despicable maggots, beasts and devils occupy the court of God, and they take pleasure in the suffering of all beings. The howling of the mermaid resounded between the heaven and the earth, and the creatures with a radius of 100,000 miles all watched this scene. The weakest and most humble mermaid in the world dares to challenge the 12 main gods of Olympus, Chuan Nirvana. The mermaid burst out with supernatural power, and at this moment, Diang seemed to feel the infinite unyielding and anger in her heart. A water gun condensed from the hand of the mermaid, she glared at Clymene with both eyes, the water gun roared, and a fierce shockwave was blasted in the air, hitting Clymene. The challenge to me is to be against Olympus and the God King. Clymene was indifferent, she just leaned on the white throne, stared at the mermaid, and said lightly. Immediately, the bombarded water gun turned into white gas and dissipated in the air. The mermaid trembled violently, her mouth and nose were bleeding at the same time, her eyes burst open at the same time, and flesh and blood flew everywhere. Ah! The mermaid's screams resounded throughout the world, and in the blink of an eye, she lost all her powers. Tongue. Clymene said lightly. 110. The mermaid let out a terrifying howl, her eyes were left with only 2 dark holes. Blood kept flowing from them, she trembled in pain, opened her mouth wide, stuck out her tongue, and bit down hard. She bit off her own tongue. With the divine power of Clymene, she shattered the mermaid's power at a glance, and then controlled the mermaid's body. The mermaid's own soul has become a puppet. Intestine. Clymene was expressionless, and she looked at the mermaid indifferently. Ah! Ah! The mermaid howled crazily. She inserted her hands into her lower abdomen fiercely, stirred wildly, and then pulled out her intestines alive. The voice of the mermaid gradually became weaker. Immediately, she fell into the sea. Boring. Clymene stood up from the throne, she walked on the ocean out of thin air, her black robe fluttered in the strong wind. Above the ocean, a dignifiedly dressed, graceful and glamorous goddess is watching the thousands of creatures in the ocean. Who else dares to challenge the authority of Olympus? All the creatures here who believe in Zeus should apologize, use blood to wash away your shame, and restore the glory of Olympus. And no creature that believes in Zeus. A icy smile appeared on the corner of Clymene's mouth. Same crime. If, whoever disobeys the judgment of Olympus, come out and challenge me. The violent divine power of Clymene resounded over the ocean, her black robes fluttered, her blonde hair danced wildly, and her infinite divine power burst out crazily. Accompanied by her anger, 100,000 golden horns sang together. The pterosaur spread its wings, and the trembling dragon's might came rushing towards it. All the living beings within 100,000 miles felt the terror of death, falling down like a mountain collapsing. The cry resounded across the ocean, and the sound of crying was extremely sweet to Clemine's ears. She felt extremely joyful, laughing wildly above the sky. Boom! Immediately, two huge water jets exploded from the ocean. A siren and a sea monster leapt up, exuding astonishing divine power all over their bodies. Above the sky, two beams of light struck like comets, one centaur and one night elf landed. Each of them has divine power no less than that of the lower gods. This god's domain is extremely vast, and there are more than trillions of creatures in it, but among them, the creatures with divine envoys and demigods are wonderful. The lower god is already the biggest god that ordinary creatures have seen in their lifetimes. We all live in this sea area, under the ocean. We have witnessed the miracles of Zeus, deeply appreciated his merits, and believed in Zeus. Today, we challenge you. Death will bring us honor, but surviving will bring us shame. We challenge you, Olympus. The siren spit out a huge water ball, and the sea monster began to sing the song of the sea monster. The bursts of singing condensed into substance and turned into swords shining with cold light. The night elf summoned a silver giant bow, and the stars in the sky the force descended violently, condensed on her giant bow, and the centaur swung his giant axe. Phantoms burst out from his giant axe, and countless legions shouted, "Center of death." The power of the water polo, the sword of the demon song, the arrow of the stars, and the giant axe gathered together and condensed into an extremely strong light beam. Countless elemental energies burst out and swept towards Scylla together. Betrayal. In the eyes of Clemene, there was an infinite meaning of death. Her face was extremely cold, and the violent divine power surged out from her divine body, and then, the whole ocean. Freeze instantly. Countless frosty air condensed around her. She grabbed a horn. The horn sprouted wings out of thin air, flapped violently, and then, Clemene blew the horn. The sound of the horn erupted. Its power was not swift and violent, but extremely viscous, like a mass of mud. Black mist burst out from the horn, and they spread. Immediately, the feeling of shame gushed out from the hearts of all living beings. Clemene is the goddess of prestige. She controls the prestige of all living beings in the world. Naturally, she can also deprive all beings of their prestige. It was as if everything had passed away, as if he had made an irreparable mistake, as if everything in the world was despising him. A sense of shame burst out. Boom! The giant axe in the hands of the centaur and the silver bow in the hands of the night elves shattered at the same time. Blood spewed from the mouth of the siren, and the throat of the siren was cut off directly. The attacks of the four lower gods were completely blocked by Clemene, and their divine power was almost lost. We do not accept, we do not agree with the gods on Olympus, we. The eyes of the four lower gods were full of hatred, their eyes were red, they gritted their teeth, screamed, and flew directly towards Clemene. Their divine bodies were broken into ashes inch by inch, but their divine power gradually condensed between their brows. Four violent beams of light rushed towards Clemene, and then exploded. The four middle gods exploded their divine bodies and disappeared. All their divine powers erupted at the same time at this moment. The dazzling light illuminated the endless night. Block, roaring into the ocean. The smoke gradually dissipated. Dressed gracefully and luxuriously, the glamorous goddess stands tall above the ocean. Her body has no trace of dust, and she is unscathed. Challenges from lower gods are always so boring. Then, die. Clemene looked at the ocean. Her face was expressionless. A golden horn landed beside her and began to play. Under the ocean, countless mermaids hiding in shells exploded and died. In the ocean, countless sirens and sea monsters hiding in caves were flying with flesh and blood, turning into powder. Swimming fish, crabs, shells, and all living creatures in the sea exploded together. The islands in the ocean, the night elves living in the treeholes, the men and horses holding battle axes, the dwarves in the island volcanoes, the birds in the air, the swans, and the harpies all disappeared in an instant. Their flesh and blood exploded and fell heavily. The entire ocean, and all the islands above the ocean, were all dyed red. all the creatures were bombarded and killed by Clemene. There are only a little bit left, the creatures with divine power. They escaped the magic of the main god of Clemene and ran desperately. Accept your fate. Clemene smiled cruelly, she remained motionless, and the 100 horns around her turned into dragoons, who held golden spears and drove the black dragon. They raised the spears in their hands, pointed to the sky, and then rushed forward. They disappeared directly in place, and then appeared tens of thousands of miles away in an instant, and the spear in their hands ruthlessly struck out at the creatures in front of them. Puff puff. In an instant, almost all the remaining creatures within 100,000 miles were killed. A blood-covered night elf, wearing a crown, long silver-white hair, and a golden robe, is extremely luxurious, but at this moment, his eyes are wide open, and his hands are tightly grasping the spear in the dragoon's hand. He is the king of the night elves on a nearby island, and he is also the strongest creature within 100,000 miles, except for Sea God Island. However, his heart of resistance was completely shattered by Clemene's monstrous killing intent and terrifying divine power. At the moment when Clemene came, he abandoned his subjects and his family, and began to flee crazily alone. However, he still did not escape the dragoons of Clemene. 03L. The dragoon let out a roar, and its arms suddenly shone with golden brilliance, its power increased dramatically, and then, the spear in its hand struck forward fiercely. Puff. The spear directly pierced the hands of the Night Elf King, about to pierce his heart. The Night Elf opened its mouth and roared, and suddenly the reflections of the stars and the moon rose in the night sky. The stars and the moon began to burst into astonishing brilliance and began to burn, and half of the Spirit King's body also began to burn. He directly burned half of his divine power, and then, a sword fused with moonlight appeared in his hand, slashing at the dragoons like a wolf. The sound of fierce metal collisions sounded, and the dragoons were shaken, their armor shattered, and then turned into a golden horn and flew outward. Puff. Peefed. Good. Peefed. Countless creatures were killed by Clemene. She closed her eyes and listened carefully to the exciting screams. The last one. Clemene looked into the distance blankly, and then, her face suddenly became ferocious, and an incomparably terrifying divine power erupted from her body. Suddenly, she turned her head, her eyes were bloodshot, and looked towards the night elf. In the direction of the king, he stared fiercely. Flesh and blood flew everywhere, and the king of the night elves, who was 100,000 miles away, exploded and died. At this point, there is only one place left. Zeus didn't go to rescue the creatures of these hundreds of thousands of miles, because Zeus knew that his battle with Clemene would burn this piece of ocean to scorched earth, and the innocent would inevitably be injured. Therefore, it is better to wait until the battle is over, and then use golden olives to resurrect them all. In this way, no living beings will die unexpectedly. Of course, except for Clemene. Clemene looked towards Sea God Island not far away, where birds were singing and flowers were fragrant, and the wind and sea were calm, as if nothing had happened. Clemene flew to Sea God Island. Zeus slowly opened his eyes. His divine power is extremely restrained, as calm as the sea after a storm. When Clemene slaughtered the creatures within 100,000 miles, Zeus integrated the last remaining original power into his own source of divine power, and his divine power increased by 10%. Zeus was extremely confident that he could defeat Clemene, but he had to be sure that nothing would go wrong and not leave the slightest possibility for Clemene. Clemene is the third rank of the main god, and I am the peak of the 7th order high god, infinitely close to the 8th order, a full 3 big ranks behind. However, Zeus's divine power has been watered by countless treasures and condensed with the supreme chaos divine breath, and his combat effectiveness far exceeds the 7th level of the upper god. A giant dragon landed, its huge wings covered the sky, and there was a dark planet in each dragon scale, exuding the breath of endless darkness. On the huge horn of the dragon, Clemene stands on it. She is noble and gorgeous, exuding infinite power of the main god. Behind her, 100,000 golden horns are arranged neatly, spread all over the starry sky, like an army. Zeus, your existence has offended Olympus. Clemene's voice resounded through the heaven and earth, and she looked at Zeus with extremely cold eyes. Ding! A sword was thrown out of Clemene's hand, and it sank heavily into the ground, leaving only the hilt, humming and trembling. Confess your sins to the God King, But you don't have to ask for his forgiveness, because only blood can wash away the God King's anger. Use this sword to take out your own heart and dedicate it to Olympus. This is your only way to salvation. As for the other creatures on this 977 island, I can forgive their sins, but they will be thrown into the abyss of Tartarus and bound by chains. Eternal flames burn all over their bodies, and they will be in endless pain forever. Therefore, all the creatures in this god's domain pray to the God King to grant them death instead of forgiveness. Clemene curled up into a cruel smile. Perhaps, including your mother, humble creature? Clemene looked at Métis in the distance. Métis knew that it was his mother Thesis, who was enduring endless pain in the abyss at the moment, and his eyes could not help but turn red. She pursed her lips and said nothing, just staring at Cluhene. One of the 12 main gods of Olympus, the goddess of prestige, Clemene. Zeus calmly looked at the goddess above the head of the dragon. You control all the reputations in the world, and you sing the praises of the god King Cronus. Great deeds, but injustice floods the world, screams resound on the earth. For tens of thousands of years, there is no law in the world, and creatures can move freely with only the violence in their hands. There is no Hades in the world, and those dead spirits have nowhere to go, wandering non-stop between heaven and earth. Tell me, goddess, where does the reputation of God King Cronus come from? The God King itself is prestige, Clemene replied calmly. All the creatures in these hundreds of thousands of miles have always believed in Cronus devoutly before, but Cronus never responded to them at all, and never cared about their joys and sorrows. I didn't force them to believe in me, they did it spontaneously. But because of this, you killed all the creatures within 100,000 miles. Is this the justice of Olympus? 11. God Kings define justice. Clemene smiled. The eagle in the sky kills the cowardly rabbit. It doesn't need to think about the rabbit's feelings. Where is the justice? The lion slaughters the cowardly deer. They're just for food. Where is the justice? The law of the jungle preys on the strong. Are you going to turn it upside down and let the strong eat the weak? Eagles feed on rabbits, and rabbits can build holes to avoid enemies. A male lion hunts and kills a deer, and the deer can run away desperately. This is the law of nature. However, I have seen too many injustices in the world. The strong only abuse the weak creatures for their inner joy. They act recklessly without fear, which is not justice. The strong is justice. Therefore, the King of Gods is the greatest justice. Other creatures deserve it. Then, let me overthrow the court of Cronus. Zeus stood up and looked at the sky calmly, surrounded by thunder. Very good. Arrogant god. The 100,000 golden horns behind Clemene sounded together, and in this most magnificent sonata, they turned into 100,000 dragon knights. Brush. 100,000 dragon knights waved their spears and pointed at Zeus. Their armors were burning with infinite golden light, just like the most dazzling fireworks in the world. The gust of wind blew up, the tide roared, Clemene's divine power surged, her hair danced wildly, she opened her arms, closed her eyes, infinite divine power burst out from her fingertips. Clemene's divine power was extremely viscous, they condensed into countless black filaments, poured into the 100,000 dragon knights behind him, and were closely connected with them. Infinite rays of light erupted from the dragon knights, and their combat power suddenly increased tenfold. White wings sprouted behind them, and the spears in their hands also sprouted wings, flapping wildly. 100,000 horns, praising the prestige of the God King. Olympus, eternal and immortal. Li Chuanjin's divine voice resounded through the future. 100,000 horns, praise the prestige of the God King. Olympus, eternity. 100,000 dragon knights roared together, and then, they tightly held the spears in their hands, and endless, CFFH, airflow surged from their bodies, suddenly charge forward, and then, suddenly disappear. The howling wind brought a surging white airflow. In the airflow, 100,000 dragon knights appeared together, and there were 10,000 dragon knights in each of the up, down, left, right, front, back, east, west, south, and north. They surrounded Zeus tightly, and then, the spears in their hands suddenly changed into 7 colors, and they all hit Zeus hard. Boom! Zeus unexpectedly accepted the 100,000 spears abruptly. There was a deafening sound of metal collisions between the sky and the earth, and suddenly, the 100,000 spears all shattered. Zeus was surrounded by golden light, and there was not even a single scar left. His eyes were calm, and there was great terror in this calmness. Clymene was shocked. After Cronus ascended to the throne of the gods, he once caused the remaining 11 main gods to fight to the death for the order of the 12 main gods of Olympus. And this, 100,000 horns, the golden dragon riders, helped her defeat many titans such as Oceanos, Thesis, Phoebe, Cus, etc., and she was ranked third among the 12 main gods. And this ferocious blow did not harm Zeus at all. Clymene's heart surged like thunder. She suddenly opened her blood-colored eyes. Her complexion became distorted abnormally. A terrifying divine power erupted suddenly. The 100,000 black filaments suddenly became 10 times larger, and the spear in the Dragon Knight's hand once again emerging, endless killing intent, accompanied by 100,000 spears, struck again. Zeus' face sank. He didn't mobilize his divine power, but relied on the power of the divine body itself, and punched out with a punch. Boom! Countless dragoons were crushed by Zeus's punch, and they turned into pieces of golden fragments, and there was a sound of mourning, and endless resentment burst out, collapsing to the ground. And the golden dragoon legion that surrounded Zeus also suddenly broke a gap. Clymene and the dragoon legion were connected in mind, and this heavy blow seemed to hit Clymene's heart. Her divine power trembled violently, her heart felt sweet, and a mouthful of divine blood spurted out. Immediately sluggish, divine power plummeted. Boom! Zeus punched out again. This punch was 10 times stronger than before. With Zeus at the center, all the dragoons were knocked into the air by Zeus, and the powerful force turned them into powder in an instant, before they even had time to howl. The golden powder fluttered between the sky and the earth, like a golden rain. Huge pain exploded in my mind. Peeved. One of Clymene's eyes burst open suddenly, blood flowed wildly. Clymene was in a trance for a moment. She had only seen such a violent, pure power without a trace of modification. She had only seen it on the body of the god King Cronus. Tens of thousands of years ago, when Clymene defeated many titans and came to the 3rd place among the 12 titans, she passed the 2nd place, Rhea, the wife of Cronus, and directly challenged the god King. She used all her divine power to hit the god King with all her strength, and the god King just looked at her, and the bone of Clymene was broken into powder every inch, making her unable to walk for 1,000,000 years. This terrifying power, is it so resembling a god king? No? Maybe even more than the god king? Countless thoughts erupted in Clymene's mind, but in an instant, above the stars, a golden thunder flashed, illuminating the sky and the earth incomparably golden. In the golden light, Zeus charged over like a thunderbolt, and punched Clymene on Mina's belly. Click! 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 Hundreds of thousands of barriers of divine power suddenly rose in front of Clymene's lower abdomen, and Zeus punched it, shattering like glass. 80,000, 90,000, 100,000, within the time of a bird's song, hundreds of thousands of divine power barriers were all shattered, and Zeus punched through Clymene's lower abdomen. Boom! Clymene stepped back heavily, blood and flesh flying everywhere. Clymene's screams resounded through the heaven and earth, and then fell heavily on the ground. Zeus punched Clymene in the stomach. Boom! Clymene stepped back heavily, blood and flesh flying everywhere. Her screams resounded through the heavens and the earth. She retreated tens of thousands of meters, and then fell heavily into the sea, bursting into a column of water as high as 10,000 meters. After a while, this is the last time you can defy God. Weak creature. Clymene's face was full of blood, her hair was extremely messy, she slowly rose from the ocean, her eyes showed infinite violence, and her murderous intent was beautiful. Boom! A dragon's cry full of anger and unyielding resounded through the heaven and earth, and above the sky, a huge dragon emerged, billowing the might of the dragon, overwhelming the creatures present. The black dragon of Clymene fell from the sky like a dark meteorite. In the name of Olympus, dragon, obey my command, dedicate your mighty dragon power, and integrate with my body, blood, soul. From the blood of the beast, the flower of the Titan blooms. Clymene suddenly raised her head, looked at the giant dragon falling from the sky, stretched out her hand to her left eye, and directly dug it out. She clutched her eyeballs tightly in her hands, and pointed to the sky. The power of infinite hatred and terror rolled out of the eyeballs, condensed into substance, and turned into countless innocent souls. Their wailing sounds resounded throughout the world. The violent divine power erupted from Clemine's body, which was several times more terrifying than before. And the giant black dragon in the sky stretched out its claws, and ruthlessly slammed into his eye sockets. A huge black dragon's eye was caught by the giant dragon, and the black dragon's blood dripped down into the ocean. The black dragon swooped down, and it stretched out the dragon's eye in its claws, and it matched the eyeball in Clemine's hand fiercely. The infinite divine power exploded in an instant. 100,000 black tornadoes erupted from Clemine, and blood-colored rain fell from the sky. In the violent wind and torrential rain, Clemine's divine body was 10 times larger, and she had the body of a giant dragon. The body, lying on the ground, with 1,000 heads stacked on top of each other, looks like a giant tower. These 1,000 heads have empty eyes, divine blood gushes out from them crazily, and countless eyeballs dance around them. The 1,000 heads of Clemine turned together and looked at Zeus, and countless venomous and sharp voices sounded at the same time. Let's see the true strength of the Lord God of Olympus, a weak creature. Olympus, in the bronze temple eternally burning with blue-black flames. The king was asleep on the throne, and only 2 gods stood at the top of the hall. Zeus, the god of shadows, and Phoebe, the goddess of light. The real battle has begun. Zeus was a pure shadow, and his divine voice seemed to come from the abyss. The power of the new god is beyond my imagination. But he will not be the opponent of the goddess of prestige. This is just another victory of Olympus. The image of Phoebe is a mass of pure light, the divine voice is like flowing water in the abyss. Outside the temple, the light shines brightly. A carriage pulled by 4 flaming giant horses flew from the sky, its fiery light and flames seemed to engulf everything. The sun god Hyperion stepped into the temple. His head was a mass of chaotic burning dark planet. She is followed by a goddess in white robes exuding colorful rays of light. She is the wife of the sun god, Thea, the goddess of dawn. In her arms was a baby. The goddess of dawn dragged a long white robe, and behind her was a vast glow that filled the palace. She held up the baby in her hand and presented it in front of the god king. Eternal great, supreme and holy god King Cronus, our son of God has been born. Please name him. The god king is still asleep. Clemine's right claw stretched forward, facing the void, and grabbed it hard. The black tornadoes whizzing violently around her suddenly paused, and then they roared and rushed towards her claws, condensing into a black ball and bursting out with earth-shattering divine power. The black ball seems to have absorbed all the light between the heaven and the earth, and billowing black fog escapes from it, and countless blood-colored eyes dance around. Clemine raised the dragon's claws high, and threw the black ball in the claws fiercely towards Zeus. Zeus's complexion sank. He stood on the spot, motionless, his long golden hair danced wildly with the wind. In an instant, the black ball rushed forward with an incomparable howl. Zeus gathered his divine power and punched the black ball. The golden thunder exploded in the fist instantly, and the black ball instantly shattered and turned into ashes. Seeing this scene, she was shocked like countless bolts of lightning exploded in Clemine's heart. Her 1,000 heads screamed together, and the countless eyeballs flying around her burst instantly, and blood and flesh flew everywhere. Puff! Puff! Clemine's dragon body exploded inch by inch, and 1,000 dragon claws protruded from the body. 1,000 dragon claws were lifted up at the same time, turning into a strong beam of light, and then the earth and wolf slashed at Zeus. Wolf. Thunder broke out between heaven and earth, and light and darkness alternated 9 times in an instant. The figure of Zeus rose violently, rushed to Clemine, and punched and bang. A wave of 100,000 meters high exploded above the ocean, and the whole world shook violently. Countless crisp shattering sounds resounded. The surrounding space was shattered piece by piece, and the air of infinite chaos surged out from it. The space gap has an extremely astonishing gravitational force. The seawater is sucked in like a dragon, and millions of huge water columns explode on the ocean, connecting the space gap, the sound of water roaring non-stop. Ding! The 2 gods confronted each other, and Clemine felt extremely terrifying and huge divine power coming from Zeus. She felt her muscles and bones were shattered every inch of her body, flying across the ocean like rain. Clemene was severely injured, and her huge body crazily retreated nearly 10,000 meters. Her 1,000 heads, hollow eye sockets, ears, nose and mouth all began to spurt out divine blood violently, and her divine power dropped dramatically. When the smoke dissipated, Clemene could only see Zeus standing above the ocean. His face was expressionless. Thunder was shining all over his body, and the terrifying power of God came bursting upon him. He was intact, only a small white spot was left on his fist. Clemene trembled extremely, her huge dragon body trembled slightly, endless fear struck. His strength is no less than that of the God King, and his thunder seems to be more terrifying than the flames of the God King. This is absolutely impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Clemene roared into the sky, God King Cronus, the ruler of the sky, ocean and land, the ruler of hundreds of millions of gods in the world. No human emperor can compete with him comparable. And I am the 12 main gods of Olympus. I will never fail like this, never, never. It is absolutely impossible for there to be a sharp contrast between what happened in theory and what happened in reality, and Claire's face is extremely hideous and terrifying. Ugly monster, you are not qualified to be a god of Olympus. Zeus stepped forward, and every time he took a step forward, great terror exploded in Clemene's heart, almost making her liver and gallbladder burst. New dragon claws burst out from Clemene's dragon body. The dragon claws stretched to 10,000 meters, and they came to kill Zeus fiercely. A layer of golden light surrounded Zeus's body, and when the dragon claw touched it, it immediately shattered. Can't stop him. Zeus walked up to Clemene. Suddenly, his eyes sparkled with lightning. A world evolved in his eyes. His body became huge, and endless lightning flashed in his hands, and then, he took Clemene's 1,000 heads, blown away with one punch. 1,000 heads should explode. They turned into extremely thick blood, fell into the sea, stirred up a crimson tsunami, roaring away in all directions. Clemene's divine power first used the Dragon Cavalry Legion, and then merged with the dragon to exert the power of the dark storm. Her divine power was almost exhausted, and she could no longer resist Zeus. Clemene let out an earth-shattering scream, and her huge dragon body fell powerlessly. Clemene, are you really one with this dragon? Come out? Zeus stepped on its body. The power of his right fist was condensed, and the strength increased tenfold. With one punch, he blasted into the huge dragon body of Clemene. Her huge body exploded, all the dragon scales were shattered, and flesh and blood flew everywhere. Infinite fragments burst out crazily. A golden light flashed in Zeus' eyes, his hand was as fast as lightning, and he grabbed the air, screaming. A goddess in a long robe was strangled by his neck and held in his hands. The formerly graceful, glamorous and extremely noble goddess now has disheveled hair and shawls, blood all over her face. Her complexion is extremely distorted and terrifying, and her empty eye sockets exude infinite resentment and hatred. Sure enough, Clemene's real body is hidden in this huge dragon body. The thunder flashed in Zeus's hand, and the thunder turned into a sword. He held the sword against Clemene's throat. Leave your last words. Zeus said solemnly. The source of divine power, all burn. Clemene gritted her teeth and said be word by word. Behind Clemene, the source of her divine power emerged, 100,000 golden horns shining in the night sky. Trumpets sounded. Then, sound, time, and everything seemed to freeze here. Clemene's divine power is completely burned, and she has become an ordinary, extremely ordinary creature at this moment. She will be pricked by a rose, starve, and die. The rays of light exploded from Clemene's body, and then all the seawater in the western sea evaporated. The sea roared. Clemene sat blankly on the ocean, all her divine power burning and exploding. She evaporated all the seawater in the sea of the extreme west, which was in a radius of billions of miles, leaving an extremely deep round pit. The seawater from other places is pouring down here, and there seems to be only the sound of seawater between the sky and the earth. Everything seems to be gone. Here, Clemene kept chanting incantations, and her divine power was completely lost. At this moment, she couldn't walk on the ocean at all, so she had to keep chanting incantations in her mouth to prevent herself from falling into the ocean, among the ocean. She looked at herself in the seawater, her eyes were empty, her face was covered with dried blood, her hair was messy, and she was extremely depressed. It's still a victory. Clemene said slowly, God King. I have lived up to the reputation of Olympus. I've won. Clemene's eyes were filled with tears, she was trembling and wanted to stand up. The 12 main gods of Olympus are immortal and will enjoy eternal glory. Although Clemene is victorious, she has lost everything. God King. Look at me. I have lived up to your glory. At this moment, in the sky, a huge shadow fell. Clemene looked up. A god descended from the sky. He had a solemn and handsome face, long golden hair flowing freely, thunder shone all over his body, and surging divine power rolled out. It's Zeus. He was unscathed, his whole body was shrouded in golden light, his right hand was raised high, supporting a huge island. The entire island was also shrouded in misty golden light, and the birds and flowers were still fragrant on the island. Boom! Zeus put Poseidon Island into the ocean. He flew towards Clemene slowly, grabbed her and threw her to the ground. Leave your last words. Clemene's eyes were a little dull, she looked at Zeus helplessly, her pupils slightly dilated. Ah! Ah! Clemene opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. Suddenly, she screamed. Clemene's muscles and bones were broken, and endless pain exploded all over her body. God King! God King! God King! God King! Clemene howled wildly, she crawled towards Olympus, her voice was extremely hoarse. God King! Your most loyal believer, your sister, the guardian of the fog gate. The singer of the King of Gods is here, please lower your divine power and save me, save me, save me. King of God, King of God, King of God. Tears erupted from the hollow of Clemene, with a voice of endless despair. King of God, I beg your mercy. Pity your most faithful believers. I have lost everything, and I have dedicated everything to you, God King. You should save me. Save me. She crawled towards the direction of Olympus, howling crazily. God King. Save me, save me, save me. Hot tears flowed from Clemene's hollow eye sockets, and all kinds of emotions exploded in my heart. A bet. Clemene let out an incomparably stern roar, and the voice was mixed with outrageous resentment and grief. My divine power, my seed of God, my child, my husband, everything, mine, everything is gone. God King, where are you? Clemene was completely insane. Rolling divine power came from the direction of Olympus. Immediately, Kabiheni became quiet. Her empty eyes stared in the direction of Olympus, with a look of despair on her face. Not a word. Surprise, despair, loss, terror, countless emotions burst out in my heart. I'm not for myself, I'm for you. I am not for myself, but for the glory of Olympus. A desperate smile appeared on Clemene's face. I see. I see. Clemene gritted her silver teeth. Really? God King? God King. Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you? Clemene began to scream crazily, and suddenly, her right hand turned into a sharp sword, like a slash between her own eyebrows. Clemene's skin was cut open suddenly, her flesh and blood were exposed, rolling and wriggling, making people's scalp go numb. She was trembling all over, and suddenly, she grabbed her own flesh and blood with one hand, and the cut skin with the other, and yanked upwards fiercely. Clemene's god skin was torn off by himself, leaving only her flesh and blood. Ah! Clemene screamed in pain. At this moment, she was bloody, like a mass of rotten flesh. She could no longer see that she was the once noble and incomparable 12 Lord Gods of Olympus. Above the sky, divine power billowed in, and terrifying blue-black flames descended from the sky. In an instant, Clemene's divine skin was completely burned and turned into a ball of black silk, flying in the direction of Olympus. She looked in the direction of Olympus in despair, her face extremely hideous and terrifying. Do you want this? You want this, right? I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you. Clemene smiled miserably, she opened her mouth, and the sound of vomiting rolled out. Then, a white bone spit out from her mouth. This is her spine. Clemene looked in the direction of Olympus, and suddenly, a black air current surged from Olympus. The white spine in its mouth was tightly entwined by the black airflow, and the airflow rolled and fluctuated, completely pulling the spine out of Clemene's mouth. At this time, Clemene has become a mass of flesh and blood on the ground, but she is still screaming crazily. Blood. God King. I still have blood. I still have meat. God King. You accept it. I dedicate it to you. Dedicate it to you. Clymene crawled in the direction of Olympus, and a long trail of blood came out from under her body. Suddenly, divine blood burst out from Clymene's body. They formed a huge red blood droplet. The power of the Lord God is rolling out. She has become a pale mummy. Then, the flesh on her body separated into pieces. 124,000 pieces of pale flesh flew towards Olympus. All that remains of Clymene is a pile of bones. The group of white bones was actually still moving in the direction of Olympus. But her voice still echoed all around. I still have it. I still have it. Do you want this? Great God King? I still have it. I still have my soul. I still have my soul to dedicate to you. You take, let's go, right here. On the bones, the dark and dim shadow of Clymene appeared. She was still so graceful and gorgeous, but she seemed to have completely fallen into madness. She began to bite her own arm, and her soul disintegrated and dissipated. Then, the blue-black flame rose in place. The soul in the form of Clymene has disappeared, but a little girl. She looked nothing like the main god, holding a small, thick fish in her hand. Beside her appeared a boy holding a sickle and burning with blue-black flames. The little girl leaned forward. She lowered her head, ignorant. You are finally satisfied. I seem to have dedicated everything to you. But, I can't remember anything now. Who are you? The little girl wanted to hold the boy's hand, but the moment she touched the boy's shadow disappeared. The girl's complexion instantly became gloomy, and her face turned grayish-white, shrouded in a thick dead air. I want to fight. I want to fight, she said viciously. Her eyes were like knives, and she looked around. Zeus was by her side, but she turned a deaf ear to Zeus. But who am I going to fight? I can't think of anything. The girl covered her face and seemed to be crying. A shadow of a boy appeared behind her. The boy looked very simple and honest, with a huge stone pillar on his back. The boy came up and seemed to want to comfort her. Go away. The girl pushed the boy roughly. She shouted into the void. You like Rhea? How can you like Rhea? How can she compare to me? You wait for me. I would do anything for you. But the boy she likes has long since disappeared. She was trembling all over, squatting down, hugging her head and crying. The boy with the huge pillar on his back came to comfort her. The golden horn was left aside, then she disappeared. Drip, mission accomplished. One of the 12 main gods, the famous goddess Clymene, has been wiped out. You get 5 million original power. Drop, mission, Titan Wars, is on. The host can go to Olympus at any time. It is still unknown who will gain the power between heaven and earth. Reward. Unknown. Billowing airflow descended from the sky and poured into Zeus' divine body. The airflow contains powerful divine power, which is the power of the source. The bones of Clymene were also reduced to ashes. Zeus looked at the empty sea in front of him and sighed. Clymene was so loyal to Olympus. In the end, Zeus wanted to stop her tragic sacrifice to the god king and give her a good time. But he still didn't make a move. I will remember you, Zeus said silently in his heart. Then, Zeus looked over the blue ocean. Come out, cowardly god. The light in Zeus' eyes flashed, and thunder broke out. The thunder light shone on the ocean, and a god opened a space and jumped out of nothingness. He is tall and tall, with a classic and handsome face, a faint smile on his mouth, a golden crown of thorns on his head, and 3 burning torches behind him. Prometheus. Zeus looked at him. At the very beginning of the battle, Zeus noticed Prometheus, who was closely following Clymene thousands of miles away. He thought it was an ambush set by Clymene, and he was always extremely vigilant about it. However, until the end, Prometheus did not appear. Clymene is the mother of Prometheus. Zeus stared at Prometheus with cold eyes. Cowardly god. I know your god name. Your name is Prometheus, and you are the most beloved child of Clymene, the goddess of prestige. Zeus pointed to the pile of white ashes left after Clymene's soul burned. You just saw your mother burn into ashes like this. Why didn't you participate in the battle? Zeus, who is familiar with mythology, of course knows that Prometheus has always been at odds with Zeus. From the beginning to the end, he never loyally believed in a god king. During the period of Cronus god king, he was against the sun, and finally made a contribution to Zeus's overthrow of Cronus in the Titan War. After Zeus ascended the throne, he violated Zeus' edict and conspired to overthrow Zeus's rule. In the end, Zeus punished him by chaining him on an iceberg, and the eagle would come and eat his heart. His liver grows back every day, and he suffers forever. Don't be angry, noble god, Prometheus smiled. Wouldn't it be of great benefit to you if I didn't participate in this battle? Your humble divine power will not pose a threat to me. Prometheus is only the third rank of the upper god, which is a well-deserved great god in this god's domain, but it is obviously nothing in the eyes of Zeus. Prometheus didn't care. He knew that what he relied on was his superb wisdom and mind. I don't want to be your enemy, noble god. We have a common goal. Speaking of this, Prometheus's eyes seemed to ignite. Overthrow the court of Cronus. Prometheus witnessed the whole battle between Zeus and Clymene. He was extremely excited, because, he judged, Zeus was very strong, but not strong enough. Prometheus estimated that Zeus alone could defeat 3 or 4 of the 12 main gods. There are only so many remaining main gods in the divine court. Or, you can fight Cronus and lose both. Zeus will die and Cronus will be seriously injured. At that time, he can choose to help Cronus, or he can choose to help Zeus. The choice is in his own hands. It is even possible to ascend to the position of God King himself. Prometheus was extremely excited, and he smiled all over his face. My noble god, my divine power is not very good, but I occupy a high position in the court of Cronus, and the king of gods is very dependent on me. Let me tell you a piece of news. God King fell into a deep sleep. It has been a long time. I am lying in ambush in his court, and I will cooperate with you from the inside out, and together we will overthrow the rule of Cronus. At that time, I and you will rule the sky and the sea, and I only need the right to rule the earth. How about it? Then what is your plan? It's very simple, Prometheus said word by word. God's medicine. This is consistent with the story. In history, Zeus refined the medicine of death, put it into fine wine, and coaxed the king of gods to drink it, which greatly weakened the power of the king of gods. But even so, the war between Zeus and Cronus lasted tens of thousands of years. Zeus nodded. Okay, let's make an agreement here. If you really help me in this war, I will hand over the dominion of the earth to you. Zeus knew that Prometheus did not come from sincere kindness. But at present they have the same goal and have the value of trading. The two gods reached a tacit understanding with their own ghosts. Okay. I'll be in touch with you. See you at the summit of Olympus. Ha 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 ha. Prometheus smiled, lowered his head and picked up Clymene's ashes, threw them into the sea, and flew into the sky without looking back. His laughter echoed across the ocean. The mission, Titan Wars, has started. Zeus will soon be on the road to Olympus. This is his destiny. God King. I don't think that god is trustworthy. You have to be careful. Métis walked over. She was dressed in a red robe, bright and dazzling, but her complexion was a bit dignified. He is cunning as a fox, cowardly as a mouse, and vicious as a snake. You must not cooperate with him. It's all right. Métis, I won't be used by him. Besides, he at least told me that Kronos is still sleeping. No wonder the number of gargoyles has decreased so much recently. Zeus already had an idea in mind. Métis. Zeus turned his gaze to the beautiful red-robed girl in front of him. I have decided that I will no longer refine and use the god meteor medicine. I will defeat Cronus by sheer strength. Métis nodded. I think that's the most reliable way. The breeze blew Métis' hair. God King, for many years, I have been thinking about this road to the top of Olympus. Sea God Island, in a secret room in the Sea God Temple. In the secret room, Métis was kneeling, and the Book of Wisdom in front of her kept flipping, projecting 12 phantoms. It is the 12 main gods of Olympus. Métis looked solemn. The great God King, this is the current form of Olympus. These 12 main gods are also the most important combat power of Olympus. In fact, Olympus is weaker than we imagined. Métis paused. Great God King, you should know about the sorting battle between the main gods of Olympus held tens of thousands of years ago, right? After Cronus ascended to the throne of God, he consecrated the other 11 main gods of Olympus. Then, let them fight each other to decide the order of the 12 main gods. The first place is of course God King Cronus. The second place is his wife, the second-generation Earth goddess, Rhea, holding a giant lion. The third is the goddess of prestige who fought with you today, Clymene. She is the most fanatical admirer of the god king. The fourth is the goddess Themis. The fifth is the husband of Clymene, the pillar of the far west, Iapetus, who supports the western sky. The sixth and seventh are Zeus, the god of shadows, and Phoebe, the body of light. The eighth and ninth sun god Hyperion and the goddess of dawn Anthea. The 10th and 11th place are the ocean god Oceanus and the sea goddess Thesis. The last is Mnemosyne, goddess of memory. Métis stared intently at the projection in the void. Let's turn it around and analyze it one by one. A goddess with long white hair, long eyes, thin, holding a paintbrush and quill, sitting in the darkness. This is Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory. She never participates in the meetings of the god kings, and records what happened in this god's domain all day long. I estimate that she will not participate in this war, and she is also the weakest of the 12 main gods, but she is the first level of the main god. Zeus nodded. Mnemosyne was his destined wife, and she would naturally stand by his side. Then there is the ocean god Oceanus, who wears a crown and his fingers are sea snakes, and the sea goddess Thesis. The ocean god was killed by Cronus, and Thesis was thrown into the abyss of purgatory Tartarus. There was a hint of sadness in Métis' eyes, but she quickly covered it up. Then Hyperion, the sun god, and Thea, the dawn goddess. They are more loyal to Cronus, and may stand with him. But, Métis raised his eyes. My book of wisdom tell me that their first son of God has been born and named Helios. Helios. Zeus nodded. He knew this god. The sun god is a very important priesthood in Olympus. He has a sun chariot pulled by 4 flaming horses, which brings light to the world and is very powerful in combat. Hyperion was the first generation of the sun god, and later he transferred the position of the sun god to Helios, and Helios became the second generation of the sun god. The sun god couple, their weakness is Helios. Métis showed determination in his eyes. Take him away. The sun god couple love their godson so much that Hyperion is even going to give up his priesthood to Helios. Take him away and threaten them. Let them know which side they should stand in this war. Zeus nodded. I didn't expect Métis' scheme to be so vicious. Then, Métis continued to analyze, her eyes fixed on a group of light and a group of shadows in the void. This group of light and shadow is the god of shadows, Zeus, and the god of light, Phoebe. They are also more loyal to the god king, and they still regularly participate in the god court meeting. They have a pair of daughters, Leto and Asteria. Métis turned her eyes to Zeus. Her expression was extremely flattered. Great god king, you have the most handsome face in the world, the most graceful and luxurious temperament and the most shocking divine power. Pursue them. Let Leto and Asteria obey you. In that case, the shadow god couple may be wiser in this war. Zeus nodded. Leto should have been his wife, and Asteria. Then the pillar of the far west, Iapetus. In the void, a towering, extremely white stone pillar connects the sky and the earth. Iapetus, like Clymene, is a fanatical believer of the god king. Otherwise, he would not accept the extremely hard job of supporting the sky. Besides, you killed Clymene, which is a sworn enemy. Iapetus will necessarily side with Cronus, and fight him, unavoidable. Just. Zeus nodded. And then the goddess Themis. She is loyal to you, great god king. Métis knew that Zeus had married Themis. She felt a little uncomfortable and didn't want to mention her too much. And then there is your mother, the goddess holding a giant lion, the second generation D-Mother Thea. Métis looked at the great god in the void. She possesses the 8th level divine power. On one side is my husband, and on the other side is my son. And the husband and son will face each other with knives, and the blood will flow like a river. As a wife and mother, what choice will she make? Métis shook his head. I don't know. Maybe she will be the deciding factor in this war. Finally, in the void, a great god sat on the throne, holding a sickle, wearing a crown, and the blue-black flames burned all over his body. Even if it's just a phantom, it exudes a majesty of divine power that shocks the heart and spleen. It is the head of the current 12 main gods of Olympus, God King Cronus. His divine power is the 12th level of the main god. According to rumors, his divine power is still growing. After listening to Métis' analysis, Zeus pondered in his heart. If you can rely on Helios, force the sun god couple back. Relying on Leto and Asteria, let the shadow god couple make concessions. Then the only ones he needs to fight are Iapetos, the pillar of the west, and god king Zeus. And maybe, okay, his own mother Thea. Zeus will do everything he can to the extreme, strengthen himself and weaken the enemy. Maximize the possibility of victory in this war. So, who to start with? At this time, Zeus felt a violent tremor between the sky and the earth and the sky were roaring at the same time. Métis closed his eyes. The sky is falling to kill. What? One of the pillars of the sky, Iapetus, the pillar of the west, felt the death of his beloved wife. He's angry. Zeus stepped out of the temple and looked towards the sky. The western corner of the sky began to tremble and fell down. This is a sign before the Great War. The ancient scriptures predicted that the power of Olympus will change, and when a new owner will appear in the sky, the earth and the sea, it will be a sign that will appear between the heavens and the earth. Métis followed out. She looked at the land that collapsed from the sky. One of them is the collapse of a corner of the sky. What about the other prophecies? Asked Zeus. Métis opened her ruby-like lips, and a clear voice sounded. The sea lost its master, a corner of the sky collapsed. The sun disappears, between heaven and earth, a piece of ice cold. Above the starry sky, fish swim above the snails. Great Mother, go to paradise lost, great gods, born with flames and golden light. The fog door opens quietly. In addition, there are many symptoms. That is the price for the change of authority. After Métis finished singing, he felt a little regretful. This prophetic poem is not complete. Unfortunately, many ancient scrolls have been lost. Zeus nodded. The sea has lost its master, which should refer to the fall of the ocean god. The sky lost a corner, which is the current scene. The disappearance of the sun must be related to the sun god Hyperion and his god son Helios. As for the latter, Zeus couldn't understand it for a while. Drop. The system prompt sounds. The sky collapsed, and countless lives were at stake. Option 1. Travel to the far western skies and seas to save lives. Every time a creature is saved, a certain amount of divine power can be rewarded. Option 2. Stay on Sea God Island to practice. Reward. 1 chance to win a lottery, 910. The prizes may be mainly god-level magic, divine source stones, weapons, cultivation secrets, secret realms, spirit beasts, and treasures of heaven and earth. Note: this option is a special option and can be selected at the same time. The eyes of Zeus are shining brightly, and the heart is full of joy. This is the best way to save the choice. Option 1, saving lives, is in line with Zeus's heart. Because Zeus awakened the breath of the God King, and the God King not only has powerful divine power, but also has a compassionate heart. A God King who only relies on violence cannot consolidate his God court and rule this God domain forever. Also, saving souls is an excellent opportunity to increase believers. Having saved lives, they will naturally be grateful, and most likely will turn to believe in themselves. The power of faith of every believer will greatly strengthen the divine power of the gods. With the promotion of the rank of the gods, it will become more and more difficult to practice in the future. In particular, what Zeus practiced is the secret of the chaos and divine breath that surpasses the secret of the Titans, and the required divine power can be described as massive. The power of faith is the best way to increase the rank of God. In contrast, the divine power rewarded by the system itself is not that important. Option 2 also made Zeus very jealous, especially the main god-level magic. Zeus's supernatural power is great, his weapons are extremely fierce, and his body is extremely powerful, but he can only control thunder, not magic. Whether it was Skyla's demon-level magic, 100,000 crimson giant eyes in the darkness, or Clymene's main god-level magic, 100,000 horns, golden dragoon legion, they all left a deep impression on Zeus. Magic can greatly strengthen the fighting power of the main god. Even like Skyla, it can temporarily surpass the fighting power of the god itself. I choose at the same time, Zeus said silently in his heart. In the desolate land of the far west, in the blue sky, the court of Clymene and Iapetus. Prometheus looked at the scene in front of him in shock. He told his father, "Mother's fall. I wanted to persuade my father to help me in the upcoming Titan War. Get rid of Cronus and Zeus, and help me ascend to the position of God Lord." Unexpectedly, as soon as the words came out, the incomparably huge pillar of Chengtian trembled suddenly. The extremely white and holy pillar of Chengtian connects the heaven and the earth. Infinite divine power surrounded it, and suddenly, the entire huge pillar began to burn hotly. Roar of the Lord God, in the flames, Iapetus appears. He held an extremely huge pillar in his arms, and his two eyes were like two burning stars. The violent divine power surrounded him, and suddenly, the divine power condensed into a solid body, turned into countless white pillars, and fell to the ground, just like a seen rainstorm. "Father, don't do this, the sky will collapse." Prometheus trembled extremely. For many years, his father's body was just a pillar supporting the sky, and he never spoke. Very silent. And the mother is the master of this barren land in the far west. She often sat on her white throne, and talked to the giant pillar, talking all night. But Zu never answered. Sometimes, Prometheus felt that his father did not like his mother. The divine voice shook the world. Iapetus's legs are huge mountains, his body is like the vast sky. His hands are composed of countless white dragon heads, his two eyes are burning stars, his feet are on the ocean, and the sun and moon are on his head. Make a deafening sound. He pulled out the giant pillar supporting the heaven and earth, and the white clouds in the sky swirled, and suddenly, violently flocked towards his giant pillar. Above the sky, all the clouds were sucked into the giant pillar by him, and the giant white pillar suddenly swelled 10 times. He cried out incomparably, 2 lines of clear tears flowed from his eyes, each drop could fill a lake. My love, who murdered you?" Iapetus was not good with words. Together with Clymene, he was born from the first generation of Earth Mother Gaia, like twins. When they were born, Iapetus held Clymene in his hands, as if he was holding the pillar of the sky. He fell in love with Clymene when he was born, and he almost never took his eyes off her. However, Clymene did not like this powerful but inarticulate god. She likes the youngest child, Cronus, who is burning with blue-black flames and exudes the majesty of a god-king. However, Cronus did not accept Clymene in the end. Finally, Clymene married Iapetus. The priesthood of Iapetus is to support the sky. He couldn't leave this barren land in the far west all day long, and Clymene and Prometheus were basically in charge of everything in the court of God. He knew that his wife did not love her, but Clymene belonged to him in the end. Just being able to watch her, listen to her tell what happened in the divine court, and listen to her praise the greatness of the god king Cronus already satisfied him. Fierce hatred erupted from Iapetus's heart, and that hatred became solid, forming clusters of incomparably thick black mist, which drifted down from the sky. Revenge. Revenge. He could no longer hear any words in his heart, and his mind was completely controlled by hatred. The black mist fell into the world, and the creatures infected by the black mist all fell into fanatical hatred and began to kill each other. At the bottom of the ocean, the mermaid mother tightly pinched her child with red eyes. The sirens ripped open the mother's body alive and began to devour her corpse. The night elves burned the forest they lived in, and the tribes of people and horses were killing loudly and bleeding profusely. Even infants crawled towards the arsenal, looking at the sharp weapons with great longing in their eyes. On Mount Olympus, the slender, white-haired, long-eyed, thin goddess is still sitting at the table, holding a paintbrush in her hand, and little bits of divine power are flying around her like fireflies. She just finished a painting. In the painting, the god who controlled the thunder smashed the goddess holding the golden horn with a punch. Suddenly, she trembled all over. This feeling has never been seen in thousands of years. She felt that in the painting, there was a wonderful connection between the god who controlled the thunder and herself. What happened? Mnemosyne stared at the god in the painting. Zeus turned into a thunderbolt and flew towards the collapsed corner of the sky. The closer he got to the sky, the more Zeus felt the vastness of the sky. The pressure of the surrounding divine power is getting bigger and bigger. Zeus's body is shining with thunder, protecting his body, otherwise he may be shattered by the huge pressure of the sky. It's here. Suddenly, Zeus's eyes flashed with thunder, and the sky was already close in front of him, but it was only 10,000 meters away, and he could touch it in a moment. Stick it up, or... While thinking, suddenly, the sky and the earth were dark, and there was no longer any sunlight. Zeus saw that the sky turned into pure black, covering the sun, but that black has countless lines, and the divine power keeps flowing. Which god is this barrier of divine power? Just as he was thinking, the darkness suddenly rolled forward, and a pair of huge eyes appeared above the sky, the eyes of a monster. Looking coldly at the ground, and the darkness before was just one of its tentacles, covering the sky. The huge black horns on the top of the monster's head, and countless tentacles floating in the air, made the scalp tingle. The scales and armor of the black body shone with black light, and the divine power was rolling, surging, surging. Its huge body floated across the sky. It turned out to be a scorpion. All of a sudden, it opened its mouth wide open, boom. The white airflow rose from the ground, pulling countless creatures into its mouth. The soil, trees, and seawater on the ground, including countless creatures, wailed and were sucked into the giant scorpion's mouth alive, and their cries were earth-shattering. Great God! Aphrodite suddenly appeared, and a violent white air current surged between the sky and the earth, but it couldn't blow a strand of Aphrodite's hair. She looked at the screaming creatures with a smile, which seemed to be very interesting. God King, do you know what that monster is? Before Zeus could answer, Aphrodite waved her hand gracefully, and a white stone flew into Zeus's hand. It was that open black lens bracket lonely star in the pure white universe close black lens bracket. At this moment, this stone erupted with golden light, and the rolling divine power seemed to be gushing out. Zeus was holding it in his hand, and it was almost impossible to hold it. Scorpio. Another son of that ugly echidna. Aphrodite smiled. It used to live above the sky, but now a corner of the sky collapsed, and it appeared. It is very hungry and needs to look for food. God King, do you know why the stone is rolling with divine power? Scorpio. Scorpio. Zeus suddenly understood why this, the lone star in the pure white universe, erupted with astonishing divine power, and why in the prophecy sung by Métis, there was, above the starry sky, the fish swims in the snail. This extremely ugly monster does not know that its venom can become the greatest perfume in the world after being prepared. It will make all living beings who smell the fragrance lose their minds and fall in love. Aphrodite smiled mysteriously, and she with a wave of his hand, a handful of roses appeared in its hand. She held the rose upside down, and the branches of the rose suddenly erupted with astonishing coldness and killing intent. God, you know what you should do. Aphrodite smiled, endless rose petals erupted all over her body, colorful rainbow lights roared from her feet, a rainbow bridge went straight to the sky, and a strong fragrance wafted from her nostrils. Phantoms of countless flowers and beautiful grass appear above the Hongqiao. Aphrodite waved her hand gracefully in the air, and suddenly her divine power burst out. Infinitely colored butterflies appeared. They fluttered violently in the air, and then gathered behind Aphrodite, forming a pair of butterfly wings, and then, Aphrodite held the sword of roses, and flapped her butterfly wings behind her. She walked along this rainbow bridge, surrounded by infinite rainbow lights, and then blasted into the air. Aphrodite went straight to the sky. The rose sword in her hand suddenly burst out with earth-shattering power. The rose petals poured down like a torrential rain. She raised the knife and dropped it, and then, the scorpion in the air let out a scream. Countless tentacles were cut off, the venom of the scorpion flowed out, and the butterflies and roses flying in the air took it. God, I don't like fighting the most. Fighting is not elegant or beautiful at all. My mission has been completed. At that time, this perfume made of scorpion venom will add another sparkle to my beautiful crown. Gem. My mission is over. Next, it's up to you. The venom of the infinite scorpion condensed from the air and turned into a green gemstone, which was caught by Aphrodite. She blinked at Zeus, and then exploded. The rainbow light turned into a rose-colored beam of light and flew back to the ring on Zeus' hand. In the sky, countless scorpions sounded. Zeus raised his eyes. All the tentacles of that scorpion fell down, and the blood of the infinite scorpion fell from the sky. It looked at Zeus angrily, and then the mouths of 100,000 scorpions opened and closed non-stop, making a disgusting horror sound. The wings on the back of the scorpion began to flap suddenly, and 10,000 strong white storms surged from behind it, rushing straight to the ground. Countless creatures screamed and flew into the sky, and then exploded. The flesh and blood of endless creatures left from the sky, and the divine power of the giant scorpion suddenly increased by 30%. Its head was lowered, and its 10,000 eyes were staring at Zeus. There were no pupils in those eyes, but countless scorpions surging wildly in them. Boom! Its giant pincers suddenly surged with boundless divine power, turned into an extremely thick black phantom, and then blasted towards Zeus bitterly. Zeus turned into a thunderbolt, and the lightning flashed, illuminating the earth, and flew millions of kilometers away in an instant. Take the landing point of the giant pincers as the center. The earth suddenly cracked, countless cracks gushed out crazily, and the soil, trees, and mountain peaks sank into the cracks crazily, just like when the world was created. Scorpio missed a blow. It turned its head, its huge claws pointed at Zeus, and all the divine power in its body exploded in terror. Gotcha! Zeus saw that the divine power in the scorpion was flowing crazily from the tail of the scorpion forward. Its huge black body turned white inch by inch, and finally all the divine power was concentrated on its giant pincers, and then its giant pincers were surging the air currents and violent divine power blasted towards Zeus. Enough, ugly beast! The eyes of Zeus were full of brilliance, and infinite thunder erupted from his eyes. In each of the eyes, the world was constantly evolving. He raised his right hand, and a thunder condensed from it, forming a golden spear. The wind howled, and the clouds in the sky cracked apart inch by inch. A huge phantom appeared behind Zeus. The infinite aura of the God King surged and swelled nonstop, and the infinite beings felt the aura of the God King, and couldn't help but immediately knelt down and worshipped the great God. Since condensing the thunder and the spear of freedom, you haven't seen blood yet. Today, let this beast use your might. The golden spear was already intelligent. Hearing these words, the lightning around him suddenly roared and rioted excitedly. Layers of golden lightning turned into sharp swords, spinning around it non-stop. Zeus raised his spear, he mobilized his divine power, and concentrated it on his right arm. Boom! The divine power gathered violently. Zeus' right arm completely turned golden, countless dark clouds appeared between the sky and the earth, and thunderstorms descended layer by layer. Among the countless golden thunderstorms, Zeus' blonde hair danced wildly. He threw the long spear in his hand in the direction of the Cancer spear. Boom! The spear flew in the air, breaking through layers of space, and the sound of countless glass shattering resounded. The spear left a black mark under the sky, from which the breath of infinite chaos erupted. Scorpio felt that something was wrong. Its 10,000 scorpion mouths let out an earth-shattering scream at the same time, and the giant pincers in its hand blasted forward fiercely. Puff! The spear directly pierced the giant crab's giant pincers, and without any obstruction, it sank into the center of its eyebrows, flew out from the scorpion's tail, and directly pierced the giant scorpion. Drip! The second constellation, Scorpio, appears. Capture the image of a scorpion, raise it above the sky, and guide the creatures in the world. Reward: Great Demon Level Mysterious Ring. The Lurking Scorpion. Reward: From now on you can use the power of the constellation to enter